Rain slams down in angry sheets, lashing the empty streets with fury. Sophie Winters clutches the small blue pendant hanging from her neck, the only thing left from her mother, as she hears footsteps approaching from behind. Her blonde hair clings to her face in wet ropes, mascara tracing dark rivers down her cheeks. "Found you, Miss Collins," a cold voice calls from the shadows. A black sedan glides around the corner, headlights sweeping across her trembling form. With her heart hammering, Sophie plunges deeper into the rain, knowing that if they catch her, she'll never be free again. The rain soaks through her thin cotton dress as she darts between buildings, cutting through narrow alleys. The footsteps follow, unhurried, confident. They know the city better than she does. Sophie's breathing comes in ragged gasps, her designer shoes, now ruined, slipping on wet pavement. 3 blocks away, Michael Hayes yawns as he steers his city maintenance truck through the deserted streets. The windshield wipers fight a losing battle against the downpour. At 38, his face shows the weathered lines of someone who's seen too much. His dark hair is damp from the brief dash between the municipal building and his truck. The night shift has been long, and all he wants is to get home to check on his daughter. His thoughts drift to 6-year-old Emily, sleeping at Mrs. Rivera's apartment next door. The older woman has been a godsend since Lisa died 3 years ago, watching Emily during his night shifts. The extra hours are brutal, but the medical bills don't pay themselves. Emily's heart condition, the same one that took her mother, requires constant monitoring and expensive medication. Michael slows at an intersection, then freezes. Through the curtain of rain, he spots a solitary figure huddled beneath a flickering streetlight. A woman alone at 2 in the morning. His mind immediately flashes to Emily. What if someday that was her, lost and alone in the rain? He pulls the truck to the curb and rolls down his window, rain immediately assaulting his face. "Miss, are you okay?" Sophie's head snaps up, her body tensing like a cornered animal. Her eyes, wary and alert, dart past him to scan the empty street behind his truck. Her gaze reminds him of a wounded fox he once found during his rescue worker days, calculating every possible escape route. "I'm fine," she says, voice sharp despite her shivering. "Just waiting for someone." Michael nods slowly, unconvinced. At 2 a.m. in this weather? He gestures to his uniform, the reflective stripes still visible beneath his rain jacket. "I'm not a threat. City maintenance. Just finished my shift." When she doesn't respond, he adds gently, "This isn't a safe place for anyone to be alone right now." Sophie's shoulders tense further. "I don't need you feeling sorry for me." A flash of lightning illuminates her face fully for the first time. Beautiful, yes, but also exhausted, with dark circles beneath eyes that hold too much fear for someone so young. Michael recognizes the expression. He'd worn it himself in the months after Lisa's death, when the weight of single parenthood and mounting medical bills had nearly crushed him. "I'm not feeling sorry for you," Thais says, his voice steady despite the rain now soaking through his collar. "I'm offering a place with warm water and no knives in the hands of strangers." Something shifts in her expression, a flicker of consideration breaking through the wall of suspicion. Her eyes dart to the side and Michael follows her gaze. In the distance, headlights turn onto the street, a black sedan moving slowly, predatory. Sophie's breath catches. "Actually, I could use a ride." Michael unlocks the passenger door. Sophie climbs in quickly, sinking into the seat with a small wince that doesn't escape Michael's notice. As he pulls away from the curb, he catches a glimpse of her clutching her arm, a small streak of blood visible through her wet sleeve. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," she says quickly, pulling her arm closer to her body. "Just a scratch from when I fell." Michael doesn't push, keeping his eyes on the road as the black sedan grows smaller in his rearview mirror. "I'm Michael Hayes." "Sophie?" she replies after a moment's hesitation. "Just one name. No last name offered." "Where can I take you, Sophie?" She stares out the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. I don't really have anywhere to go right now." The words hang between them, heavy with implications Michael doesn't fully understand yet, but he recognizes desperation when he sees it. "Look, I have a couch," he says carefully. "It's not much, but it's dream. You can stay the night, figure things out in the morning." Sophie turns to study him, searching for hidden motives in his expression. Why would you help a complete stranger? Michael adjusts his grip on the steering wheel. I used to be a rescue worker before city maintenance. Old habits die hard. He pauses. Plus, I've got a 6-year-old daughter. I'd hope someone would do the same for her if she was ever in trouble. Sophie flinches at the word daughter, her knuckles whitening as they grip the edge of her seat. You have a daughter? Where is she now? With my neighbor, Mrs. Rivera. I work night shifts. They drive in silence for several blocks, Sophie periodically checking the side mirror. Michael pretends not to notice. It's not much, Michael says as they pull up to a modest duplex. The porch light casts a warm yellow glow over the entrance, illuminating a potted plant with a hand-painted container and a small wind chime that tinkles softly in the night breeze. Inside, Michael moves with quiet efficiency, finding a clean towel, a faded but soft blanket, and one of his old sweatshirts. Sophie stands just inside the door, water pooling at her feet as she takes in the small living room. The worn but clean sofa, the bookshelf filled with children's stories, a small pink backpack hanging by the door. Her gaze lingers on the backpack, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. The bathroom's to the right, Michael says, offering the items. You can shower if you want. The water takes a minute to get warm. Sophie accepts the bundle, her fingers brushing his momentarily. They're ice cold. Why are you doing this? She asks, her voice steady despite her shivering. Michael rubs the back of his neck, suddenly uncomfortable under her intense scrutiny. Because you look like you needed help, and I'd hope someone would do the same for my daughter if she ever gets into trouble. Sophie flinches again at the word daughter, her knuckles whitening as they grip the towel. But she says nothing, disappearing into the bathroom with quick, silent steps. While she showers, Michael writes a brief note and leaves it beside a mug of hot tea on the coffee table. Then he creeps down the hallway to check on Mrs. Rivera's apartment. The older woman opens her door a crack, her gray hair in a nightcap. Emily's fine, she whispers, sleeping like an angel. How was work? The usual, Michael says. Listen, I have someone staying on the couch tonight, a woman who needed help. Mrs. Rivera's eyebrows rise dramatically. Michael Hayes, are you finally dating again? Lisa would want— No, nothing like that, he interrupts gently. Just someone who needed a safe place for the night. I'll explain more tomorrow. Thank you for watching, Emily. Back in his apartment, Michael makes up the couch with clean sheets and an extra pillow. He places his wallet and keys in a locked drawer in his bedroom. Not out of distrust, but from the hard-learned habit of someone who knows how quickly security can vanish. When Sophie emerges from the bathroom 20 minutes later, her damp hair hangs in loose waves around her shoulders. With her face scrubbed clean of makeup, she looks younger and more vulnerable. She's drowning in a sweatshirt, the sleeves rolled up multiple times to free her hands. She notices the items on the coffee table and picks up the note. It reads, "If you need to call anyone, the house phone is on the wall. Don't hesitate to open the closet for more blankets. Please keep noise down. My daughter is a light sleeper when she comes home in the morning. Michael." Thank you, she says quietly, sinking onto the couch. I promise I'll be gone before your daughter wakes up. Michael pauses in the doorway to his bedroom. No rush. Get some sleep. We'll figure things out in the morning. Sophie stares at him as if trying to decode some hidden message in his words. Why aren't you asking questions? About why I was out there, who I'm running from? Would you answer them honestly right now? A small, surprised smile touches her lips. Probably not. Then they can wait. Michael turns to go, then stops. One thing though, that cut on your arm, do you need a first aid kit? Sophie's hand moves instinctively to cover her arm. It's just a scratch, the shower helped. Michael nods, not entirely convinced. Good night, Sophie. Good night, Michael. As he closes his bedroom door, Michael hears the soft creak of the couch as Sophie settles in. For the first time in years, there's another adult in his home. The thought is both comforting and unsettling. He sets his alarm for early morning. He'll need to check on their unexpected guest before Emily returns. Sophie lies awake on the couch, listening to the rain softening outside. The man who had taken her in hadn't demanded her name or pressed for details. He hadn't made her feel small or indebted. He had simply offered help without conditions. She doesn't know who he really is. But for tonight, that doesn't matter. She traces the edge of the pendant beneath her borrowed shirt, the small USB drive disguised as jewelry containing everything she needs to bring her father down. If only she can stay hidden long enough to use it. The sound of giggling wakes Sophie with a start. For a moment, confusion clouds her mind. The soft blanket around her shoulders, the unfamiliar ceiling, the scent of brewing coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. All of it feels alien after weeks of running. She sits up slowly, wincing as her stiff muscles protest. Across the small living room, a little girl sits cross-legged on the carpet, arranging a collection of colorful music note magnets into patterns. Dark curls bounce as she hums to herself, seemingly unaware that Sophie has awoken. "Good morning," Sophie says, her voice rough from sleep. The child's head snaps up, wide brown eyes lighting with curiosity. A dimple appears in her left cheek as she smiles. "Hi, you're the lady who slept on our couch. Daddy said you needed a place to stay because you were all wet from the rain. I'm Emily. I'm 6 3/4." Sophie can't help but smile at the precise age measurement. "Nice to meet you, Emily. I'm Sophie." Emily scrambles to her feet, clutching a bright red quarter note in her small hand. "Do you want breakfast? Daddy's making pancakes, and he only burns them a little bit now." Before Sophie can answer, Michael's deep voice calls from the kitchen. "Em, come help me flip these before they turn into charcoal." Emily giggles and skips toward the kitchen. After a moment's hesitation, Sophie follows, her bare feet silent against the worn hardwood floor. The kitchen is small but neat, with faded yellow curtains framing a window that overlooks a tiny backyard. Michael stands at the stove wearing the same maintenance uniform pants, but with a faded blue t-shirt. His dark hair is damp, as if he'd recently showered, and a day's worth of stubble shadows his jaw. He glances up as she enters, offering a small nod. "Morning, coffee's in the pot if you want some." "Thank you," Sophie replies, acutely aware of her disheveled appearance. She runs a hand through her tangled hair, suddenly self-conscious. "For everything." Michael shrugs, his attention returning to the pancakes. "You needed help, not complicated." But it is complicated, Sophie thinks as she pours herself a cup of coffee. Everything about her situation is impossibly, dangerously complicated. Emily climbs onto a stool beside her father, wielding a plastic spatula with grave concentration. "I'm the official pancake flipper," she informs Sophie solemnly. "It's a very responsible job." "I'm sure it is," Sophie replies, leaning against the counter. She studies the pair, noting the matching dimples in the easy, practiced way they move around each other in the small space. "You're very good at it." Michael slides a plate of slightly misshapen but golden brown pancakes onto the small kitchen table. Breakfast is served, nothing fancy, but it's hot. The three of them sit around the table, an oddly domestic tableau that makes Sophie's chest tighten with an emotion she can't name. How long has it been since she's shared a meal with anyone? Since she's felt safe enough to sit and eat without watching the door? Emily chatters through breakfast, a stream of consciousness that jumps from her kindergarten class to the bird's nest outside her window to her favorite songs. "Do you like music?" Emily asks suddenly, pointing to Sophie's hand. Sophie looks down, startled to see she's been unconsciously tapping a rhythm with her fingers against the table edge, a habit she's had since childhood. "Yes," she says carefully, "I do. I like music too. Daddy says I have a good ear, whatever that means. I wanted piano lessons, but they're too expensive right now." Michael clears his throat. "Emily, let's not talk about expenses at breakfast, okay?" Emily's face falls slightly, and Sophie feels a pang of sympathy. She knows all too well what it's like to want something beyond your reach. "I should get going," Sophie says, setting down her coffee mug. "Thank you for breakfast and for letting me stay." Michael studies her face, his expression unreadable. "Where will you go?" The question hangs in the air between them. Sophie's fingers tighten around the mug. She has nowhere to go, no one to call, and barely $20 in her pocket. The realization must have shown on her face because Michael's expression softens. "Look, I don't mean to pry, but if you need a few days to figure things out, the couch is yours." Sophie's throat constricts. Kindness is dangerous. It creates debt, and debt creates vulnerability. "I can't." "Please stay." Emily interrupts, her small face earnest. You can help me practice my songs for the school show. Emily, Michael says gently, Sophie might have other plans. But Sophie is staring at Emily, a strange recognition dawning in her eyes. What school do you go to? She asks, her voice suddenly tight. Westlake Elementary, Emily replies proudly. I'm in Mrs. Johnson's class. Sophie sets her mug down with a clatter, coffee sloshing over the rim. The music program, she whispers. You're in the Westlake music program. Michael frowns, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Yes, they have a good program there. How did you know? Sophie can't answer. Her mind is racing, connecting impossible dots. What are the chances, out of all the places in the city, all the strangers who might have found her in the rain? Emily slides off her chair and stands beside Sophie, her small hand touching Sophie's arm. Are you okay? You look like when Daddy gets his thinking face. Sophie forces a smile. I'm fine. I used to know someone who taught music at Westlake. Michael's eyes narrow slightly. The program's had a rough time lately. Their main piano teacher disappeared a few months back. Emily was just starting lessons with her when it happened. Miss Sophie, Emily suddenly shouts, her eyes widening with recognition. You're Miss Sophie who played the piano at our school. The room goes still. Sophie feels the blood drain from her face as Michael straightens in his chair, his relaxed posture instantly transforming into rigid alertness. You're Sophie Winters? He asked quietly. The pianist who vanished right before the spring concert? Sophie's hand trembles as she sets down her coffee mug. How could she explain? How could she possibly make them understand what had happened? Why she'd abandoned those children without a word? I had to leave, she says finally, her voice barely audible. I didn't have a choice. Michael's jaw tightens. The school filed a missing person report. The kids were devastated. Emily cried for weeks. His voice holds no accusation, just a statement of facts, which somehow makes it worse. What happened? Emily asks, confusion evident in her young face. Sophie looks at Emily's confused face, then back to Michael. He deserves the truth, or at least part of it. My father is Raymond Collins. Michael's eyebrows rise slightly, recognition flickering in his eyes. Everyone in the music world knows Raymond Collins, the legendary producer who has shaped the careers of countless artists. His wealth and influence are matched only by his reputation for ruthlessness. He arranged a marriage for me, Sophie continues, her voice flat, to a business partner, a man 3 times my age with connections to people who do terrible things. When I refused, things got dangerous. I ran. Emily, sensing the tension but not understanding it, presses against her father's side. Michael absently strokes her hair, his eyes never leaving Sophie's face. And now, he asks, now they're looking for me. There's a reward. Sophie's laugh is bitter. Apparently, I'm worth quite a lot to the right people. Michael is silent for a long moment, processing. Sophie waits for the inevitable, the fear, the request for her to leave, to take her troubles elsewhere. It always happens once people realize who she is and what follows her. Instead, he surprises her. Emily, why don't you go get dressed? We need to run some errands today. Once the child has left the room, Michael leans forward, his voice low. I don't know what kind of trouble you're in, and I'm not sure I want to, but I do know what it's like to be desperate. His eyes flicker to a framed photo on the wall, a younger Michael with a smiling woman with Emily's dimple. After my wife died, Emily got sick. The medical bills nearly broke us. I almost lost our home. Sophie follows his gaze to the photograph. I'm sorry. My point is, we all need help sometimes. He runs a hand through his hair, clearly wrestling with something. Look, I need to pick up extra shifts to cover Emily's medical expenses. She has a heart condition. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but she needs monitoring and medication. Insurance only covers so much. Sophie nods slowly, beginning to understand where this is going. You need a place to stay, Michael continues. I need someone I can trust with Emily when Mrs. Rivera can't watch her. Maybe we can help each other out. You trust me with your daughter? Sophie asks, genuinely surprised after what she just told him. Michael's expression is serious. Emily recognized you as her teacher. She trusted you. That counts for something in my book. He pauses. Plus, you're clearly running from these people, not working with them. Am I wrong? Sophie shakes her head, a lump forming in her throat. No. Then we have a deal? Before she can answer, Emily bursts back into the kitchen, now dressed in jeans and a purple t-shirt with musical notes printed across the front. In her hands, she clutches a worn photograph. Look what I found in my music folder, she exclaims, thrusting the picture towards Sophie. It's a group photo from the school's winter recital. Rows of children seated at small keyboards with Sophie standing at the back, her hand resting on a piano. She looks different then, hair neatly styled, wearing a tailored blazer, her posture confident and open. Nothing like the hunched, frightened woman who had appeared on Michael's doorstep. Emily points to herself in the front row, grinning widely with a missing front tooth. See, you were my teacher. You taught me Twinkle Twinkle and said I had natural talent. Sophie's fingers brush the photograph, memories washing over her. The classroom with its row of keyboards, the children's eager faces, the simple joy of teaching music without the weight of her father's expectations crushing her creativity. I remember, she says softly. You played it beautifully. Emily beams, then her expression grows serious. Why did you go away? Miss Johnson said you had a family emergency. Sophie glances at Michael, who gives her a slight nod, permission to answer carefully. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated problems, Sophie says, choosing her words with care. I had to leave very quickly, and I couldn't say goodbye properly. I'm sorry about that. Emily considers this, her small forehead furrowed in concentration. Then, with the remarkable resilience of children, she brightens. But you're here now. Can you teach me piano again? Please? Michael steps in. Emily, Sophie might not be staying long. Actually, Sophie interrupts, making her decision in that moment. I think I'd like that. She turns to Michael. If your offer still stands, I accept. Relief softens his features. Good. We'll figure out the details later. Emily bounces on her toes, clutching the photograph to her chest. This is the best day ever. I'm going to practice so hard, and we can perform at the school talent show. Whoa, slow down, Michael laughs, gently steering his daughter toward the door. First, we need to get groceries and pick up your medication. Sophie needs some time to settle in. As they prepare to leave, Sophie notices Michael checking the locks twice, his eyes scanning the street outside before opening the door. He's being careful for Emily's sake, but now for hers too. Later that evening, after Emily has gone to bed, Sophie sits at the kitchen table with Michael. Between them lies a hand-drawn map of their neighborhood, with red circles marking security cameras and blue X's indicating places to avoid. The laundromat on 4th belongs to my friend Tom, Michael explains, pointing to a spot on the map. He owes me a favor and might be willing to hire you. Cash under the table. No questions asked. Sophie nods, studying the map. I'll need to change my appearance. My hair, at least. Mrs. Rivera was a hairdresser before she retired. She can help with that. They work in comfortable silence, planning routines and safety measures. It's strange, Sophie thinks, how quickly they have fallen into this partnership. Two strangers bound by circumstance and necessity. Why are you really doing this? She asks suddenly. It's not just because Emily recognized me. You're putting yourself at risk. Michael is quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the edge of the map. When my wife died, I was lost. No one helped me. Not family, not friends. Everyone had opinions about how I should grieve, how I should raise Emily, but no one actually showed up. His voice grows softer. I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to be the person who shows up for someone else, I would. The simple honesty of his answer makes Sophie's chest ache. In her world of wealth and influence, genuine kindness is rare, usually a currency exchanged for favor or advantage. Thank you, she whispers. Michael's smile is slight but warm. We'll figure this out, one day at a time. That night, as Sophie lies on the couch listening to the quiet sounds of the sleeping house, she realizes something has shifted inside her. For the first time in months, the knot of fear in her stomach has loosened slightly. She isn't safe, not truly, but she isn't alone anymore. Outside, a car drives slowly past the house, its headlights sweeping across the living room wall. Sophie tenses, holding her breath until the sound of the engine fades into the distance. One day at a time, she thinks. pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. She could do this. What she doesn't know is that the fragile safety they are building is already compromised. 3 blocks away, a man in a dark sedan scrolls through photographs on his phone. Surveillance images from traffic cameras throughout the city. He pauses on one, a grainy shot of a woman hurrying through the rain, a city maintenance worker at her side. The man smiles and sends the image to a contact listed only as client. The message reads, "Target located, proceeding as instructed." 2 weeks pass in a strange new rhythm. Sophie dyes her hair a rich auburn and cuts it to shoulder length. Rivera proves skilled with both scissors and hair dye, tutting sympathetically over Sophie's bad breakup, the cover story they have agreed upon. Sophie finds work at Tom's laundromat, spending long hours sorting clothes and operating the industrial washers. The work is exhausting but oddly satisfying. Simple tasks with clear beginnings and endings, so different from the nebulous expectations that had defined her former life. In the evenings, she helps Emily with her homework and gives her piano lessons using a small electronic keyboard Michael has found at a thrift store. The child's natural talent is undeniable, and teaching her becomes the highlight of Sophie's days. Michael works double shifts whenever he can, leaving early and returning late, the lines of fatigue around his eyes deepening. Yet he never complains, greeting them with the same quiet warmth regardless of how exhausted he is. They develop unspoken routines. Sophie makes coffee in the mornings, strong enough to cut through Michael's night shift fog. Michael leaves small gifts for her, practical things like a new toothbrush, warm socks, a rain jacket that actually fits. Emily draws pictures of the three of them, which Sophie carefully tapes to the refrigerator door. It's domestic. It's dangerous. It can't last. The first warning comes on a Wednesday afternoon. Sophie is folding laundry at the front counter when the bell above the door jingles. She looks up with her practiced customer smile, which freezes when she sees who has entered. The man is unremarkable in appearance, average height, brown hair, forgettable features. It's precisely this blandness that Sophie recognizes. Her father employs men like this, individuals trained to blend into any background. "Can I help you?" she asks, her voice steady despite the sudden hammering of her heart. The man smiles, the expression not reaching his eyes. "Just dropping off a shirt." He places a single dress shirt on the counter, white, expensive, with golden cufflinks still attached. Sophie recognizes the brand, her father's preferred tailor. The message couldn't have been clearer if he'd spoken it aloud. "We know where you are." With trembling fingers, she writes up a ticket. "It'll be ready tomorrow afternoon." "I'm in no rush," the man replies, his gaze lingering on her face. "I'll be around." After he leaves, Sophie calls Michael from the shop's landline, her voice barely above a whisper. "They found me." An hour later, they sit in Michael's truck in the empty school parking lot, waiting for Emily's dismissal bell. "We need to move you," Michael says, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I know a place upstate." "No," Sophie interrupts. "I'm not running again." She swallows hard. "And I'm not putting you and Emily in danger by staying. I won't let you turn yourself in to marry someone against your will." Michael's voice is sharp with anger. "Then what's the solution?" Sophie turns to face him fully. "I can't keep hiding forever. My father has resources, connections. Today it was a warning. Tomorrow it could be worse." Michael is silent for a long moment, his jaw working as he thinks. There must be something he wants more than controlling your life. Sophie laughs bitterly. The only thing Raymond Collins values more than control is his legacy, his music empire, his reputation. "What about your mother's music?" Sophie stares at him, shock rippling through her. "How did you—" "Emily told me you've been teaching her a song that your mother wrote. She said it was a secret song that no one else knows." Sophie closes her eyes, mentally cursing herself for the slip. She'd played the melody for Emily without thinking, lost in the simple pleasure of sharing music again. "My mother was a composer," she says softly. "Brilliant, innovative, but unknown outside a small circle. She died when I was 12, and my father, he took her work, published some of it under his protégés' names, kept the rest locked away. Said it was protecting her legacy, but really he was just mining it for profit." Michael's expression darkens. "That's theft." "That's the music industry," Sophie counters, At least the part my father controls. And you have proof of this? Sophie hesitates, then reaches for her necklace, the thin gold chain with the small blue pendant that she keeps hidden beneath her shirt. This isn't just jewelry, it's a flash drive. It contains all of my mother's original compositions, date-stamped and cataloged, alongside recordings of my father discussing how he planned to repurpose her work. Michael's eyes widen. That's why you ran, not just because of the arranged marriage. I was going to expose him, Sophie admits, release everything to the public. But then I discovered who my fiancé really was. Not just a business partner, but someone with connections to people who silence problems permanently. Her voice drops. My father may be ruthless, but he's not violent. The same can't be said for the man he wants me to marry. The school bell rings, interrupting their conversation. Children pour from the building, Emily among them, her pink backpack bouncing as she runs toward the truck. We're not finished discussing this, Michael says quietly as he waves to his daughter. Emily climbs into the back seat, immediately launching into a story about her day. Sophie turns to listen, forcing a smile onto her face, but her mind is racing with possibilities and fears. That evening, while Emily practices on her keyboard, Michael and Sophie speak in hushed tones in the kitchen. What if we use your evidence as leverage, Michael suggests. Threaten to release it unless he calls off the engagement and leaves you alone. Sophie shakes her head. Blackmailing Raymond Collins is like trying to outswim a shark. He'll seem to cooperate, then strike when you least expect it. There has to be a way to use what you have. Sophie is about to respond when a familiar melody drifts from the living room, Emily playing her mother's composition. The notes are slightly hesitant but recognizable. An idea begins to form in Sophie's mind. What if, she says slowly, instead of hiding the music, we showcase it? My father's hosting his annual charity concert next month, a huge event with industry executives, press, influential artists. Michael frowns. You want to crash your father's party? Not crash it, perform at it. Emily's school has been invited to send students to perform in the children's showcase portion. It's a publicity thing my father does every year. Supporting music education, discovering new talent, all very PR friendly. And you think he wouldn't recognize you with your new look? From a distance with stage lights, maybe not immediately, and by the time he did, it would be too late. We'd already be performing my mother's signature piece, the one he's kept hidden for years, with cameras rolling in a room full of witnesses. Michael considers this, skepticism clear on his face. It's risky. Everything about my situation is risky, Sophie counters, but this way I choose the battlefield. From the living room, Emily calls out, Miss Sophie, I figured out the hard part. Coming, Sophie responds, then turns back to Michael. Think about it. This could work. Later that night, after Emily has gone to bed, Michael finds Sophie sitting at the kitchen table, scribbling musical notations on staff paper. I'm in, he says without preamble. But we do this smart. We prepare for every possibility, including things going wrong. Relief floods Sophie's features. Thank you. Michael sits across from her, his expression serious. Emily's safety comes first. If at any point this puts her at risk, we pull out immediately, Sophie finishes. I would never let anything happen to her. The conviction in her voice seems to satisfy him. All right then, let's make a plan. Over the next few days, they begin careful preparations. Sophie starts arranging her mother's composition for piano duet, a simplified part for Emily alongside a more complex accompaniment. Michael researches the venue's security protocols and floor plans, drawing on contacts from his day's working event cleanup. Emily, thrilled to be preparing for a special secret performance, throws herself into practice with newfound dedication. She doesn't fully understand the stakes, but she senses the importance, adopting a solemn responsibility that belies her young age. Sophie watches the child's small fingers moving across the keyboard, determination etched on her face, and feels a surge of protectiveness unlike anything she's experienced before. In just a few weeks, this little family has become more important to her than she could have imagined. The thought of putting them at risk makes her physically ill, but the alternative, continuing to run or worse, surrendering to her father's plans, is unthinkable. A week into their preparations, Michael returns home with news. Emily's school received the official invitation to the Collins Foundation Children's Showcase, he says, placing the ornate envelope on the table. Mrs. Johnson wants to know if Emily would like to participate. Sophie's hand trembles slightly as she opens the invitation. There it is, her father's company logo, his signature at the bottom of the letter. He's so close, yet has no idea she's reading his words. "We're really doing this," she murmurs. Michael's hand covers hers, warm and steady. "We're doing this together." That night, Sophie dreams of her mother, not as she had been in her final days, pale and diminished by illness, but vibrant and alive, seated at her grand piano with sunlight streaming through tall windows. In the dream, her mother turns and smiles, beckoning Sophie to join her on the bench. "Play with me," she says, her voice clear and strong. "Let them hear our song." Sophie wakes with tears on her cheeks, but a sense of peace in her heart. For the first time since she'd fled her father's home, she feels certain of her path forward. What she doesn't know is that her newfound certainty is about to be severely tested. The man in the dark sedan has been watching, gathering information, piecing together their plan. And now a new player is about to enter the game. As Michael leaves for his early morning shift, a car pulls alongside him at the corner. The window rolls down. "Mr. Hayes," a familiar voice calls. "I think it's time we had a conversation about Sophie Collins." Michael's blood runs cold as he recognizes the driver, the man from the laundromat, no longer bothering with pretense. "I don't know who you're talking about," Michael replies, his voice steady despite the fear gripping his chest. The man smiles thinly. "Let's not waste time with denials. My employer is a reasonable man. He simply wants what belongs to him." "Sophie doesn't belong to anyone." "So you do know her?" The man's smile widens. "Good. That makes this simpler. Deliver a message. Raymond Collins wants his daughter home where she belongs. He's prepared to be generous to those who help make that happen." Michael's jaw tightens. "And if I refuse?" The man's expression hardens. "Then things become considerably less pleasant for all of you." He reaches into his jacket and withdraws an envelope, holding it out. "This is a good faith offer. Consider it carefully." Against his better judgment, Michael takes the envelope. Inside is a check with more zeros than he has ever seen, along with a business card bearing a single phone number. "That would cover a lot of medical expenses," the man observes casually. "Heart conditions can be so unpredictable in children, can't they?" The threat is unmistakable. Michael's fingers tighten around the envelope, crumpling its edge. "You have 3 days to decide," the man continues. "After them, Mr. Collins will pursue other methods of retrieving his daughter." With that, the window rolls up and the car pulls away, leaving Michael standing on the sidewalk, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him like a physical burden. He doesn't tell Sophie about the encounter. Not immediately. He needs time to think, to plan. The check burns in his pocket throughout his shift, a tangible reminder of what's at stake. At home that afternoon, Michael watches Sophie and Emily at the keyboard. Sophie's patience is remarkable, her encouragement gentle but firm as she guides Emily's small fingers over the keys. The melody they practice, Elizabeth Collins' hidden composition, is hauntingly beautiful even in its simplified form. "That's it," Sophie praises as Emily completes a difficult passage. "You've got it now. Your grandmother would be proud." Emily beams at the compliment, then looks thoughtful. "What was she like? My grandmother?" Sophie's hand still on the keys. "Your grandmother?" "No, yours, the one who wrote the song." Sophie exchanges a quick glance with Michael, who leans against the doorframe watching them. "She was..." Sophie pauses, searching for words. "She was like sunshine, warm and bright, but with hidden depths. When she played, it was like she became the music itself." Emily nods solemnly as if this makes perfect sense. "Like you." Sophie's eyes widen slightly. "I'm not..." "Yes, you are," Emily insists. "When you play, your face changes. It's like you go somewhere else, somewhere beautiful." Michael clears his throat, suddenly emotional at his daughter's perception. "Time for your medication, Em." As Emily skips to the kitchen, Sophie remains at the keyboard, her fingers lightly touching the keys without pressing them. "She's right, you know," Michael says quietly. "When you play, you transform." Sophie looks up, vulnerability etched across her face. My father used to say my playing was technically perfect but lacked soul, not like my mother's. Your father was wrong. Before Sophie can respond, a knock at the door freezes them both. Michael motions for Sophie to take Emily to the back room, their practiced emergency routine. While he approaches the door cautiously, through the peephole, he sees an elegant woman in her mid-30s with light brown hair cut in a stylish bob. She looks vaguely familiar, but he can't place her. Michael, it's Caroline. Open up. His breath catches. Caroline Wright, Lisa's younger sister. The aunt Emily adores but rarely sees since she moved to Europe 3 years ago to pursue her art gallery career. Michael opens the door, genuine surprise mixing with dread at this unexpected complication. Caroline, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Milan until October. Caroline Wright steps inside, removing designer sunglasses to reveal eyes the same warm brown as Emily's, though her hair is lighter than her niece's dark curls. She wears simple but expensive clothes that speak of understated wealth and impeccable taste. The exhibition ended early, and I missed my favorite niece, she explains, kissing Michael's cheek. Her gaze sweeps the apartment, noting subtle changes: a woman's coffee mug on the counter, sheet music on the table, a jacket too small to be Michael's hanging by the door. Where's Emily? She asks, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. Emily, look who's here, Michael calls, deliberately avoiding a direct answer. Emily bursts from the back hallway, her face lighting up. Aunt Carr! She runs into Caroline's open arms. Caroline lifts Emily, spinning her in a circle before setting her down. There's my girl! You've grown at least 3 inches since Christmas. 2 1/4, Emily corrects seriously. Daddy measured. Carolyn laughs, then looks up as Sophie emerges hesitantly from the hallway. The two women assess each other, Caroline's smile faltering slightly. Carr, this is Sophie, Michael says, tension evident in his voice. She's a friend who's staying with us for a while. Sophie, this is Caroline, Emily's aunt. The hesitation before friend isn't lost on either woman. Carolyn's smile remains fixed as she extends a manicured hand. Lovely to meet you, Sophie. Sophie shakes her hand, acutely aware of her own work-roughened palms and chipped nail polish. Likewise. Emily tugs at Caroline's sleeve. Aunt Carr, Sophie is teaching me piano. She was my teacher at school before, and now she lives with us and makes the best pancakes, even better than Daddy's. Caroline's eyebrows rise fractionally. That's how wonderful. The conversation that follows is a masterclass in polite tension. Caroline inquires about Sophie's background with the precision of a surgeon. Sophie provides carefully edited responses, and Michael attempts to redirect whenever the questions become too probing. Finally, Caroline turns to Emily. Sweetheart, why don't you show me how high you can swing? I bet you can go higher than when I last saw you. Once Emily is out of earshot, Caroline's pleasant expression cools several degrees. Michael, can I speak with you privately for a moment? Sophie stands quickly. I'll go keep an eye on Emily. As she walks away, she can feel Caroline's gaze boring into her back. At the swings, Emily greets her with undisguised enthusiasm. Miss Sophie, watch how high I can go. Sophie forces a smile, pushing away her worries to focus on the child. Show me, superstar. From across the playground, she can see Michael and Caroline engaged in what appears to be an increasingly tense discussion. Caroline gestures emphatically while Michael's posture grows more rigid with each passing moment. Is Aunt Carr mad at Daddy? Emily asks, her swinging slowing as she notices the same scene. Sophie hesitates. I think they're just having a grown-up discussion. Emily's forehead wrinkles. Is it about you? Aunt Carr looked at you funny. Children miss nothing. Sophie sighs, searching for an age-appropriate explanation. Your aunt cares about you very much, and she just wants to make sure everyone in your life is good for you. But you are good, Emily states with absolute certainty. You make Daddy smile again. Before, he only did his serious face all the time. Sophie's heart clenches at the simple observation. Has she truly made such an impact on their lives? The thought is both warming and terrifying, because what would happen to them when she was gone? The question lingers as Caroline and Michael rejoin them, their conversation clearly unresolved. Caroline's smile is back in place, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Emily, darling, I'm staying at the Grand Hotel. How would you like to have a special dinner with me tonight? They have that chocolate fountain you loved last time. Emily's eyes light up, but then she glances uncertainly at Sophie. Can Sophie and Daddy come too? An uncomfortable silence follows. Caroline's smile tightens. I was thinking just us girls tonight. I haven't seen you in months, and I want to hear all about your adventures. It's okay, Em, Michael says gently. You go have fun with Aunt Carr. Sophie and I have some things to work on at home anyway. Sophie nods encouragingly, ignoring the hollow feeling in her chest. Bring me back a chocolate-covered strawberry. Emily's smile returns. I'll bring you 3. As they walk back to Michael's truck, Caroline holds Emily's hand, her voice animated as she describes the hotel's amenities. Michael and Sophie follow a few steps behind, the silence between them heavy with unspoken concerns. She doesn't approve of me, Sophie finally says, keeping her voice low. Michael sighs. Caroline is protective. After Lisa died, she wanted to take Emily to live with her, provide her with advantages I couldn't offer. Like piano lessons, Sophie says quietly, like private schools, like medical care without worrying about insurance coverage. Michael stops walking, turning to face her fully. That's not fair. I never made you feel like you had to justify your background. Sophie shakes her head. I'm not criticizing. I'm observing. Caroline can give Emily things that neither of us can. Things aren't what Emily needs most. No, Sophie agrees. But they help. My father taught me that much, at least. She glances ahead to where Caroline is buckling Emily into her luxury SUV. What did she say to you about me? Michael hesitates. She thinks you're hiding something. She's worried about your influence on Emily. She's right to be concerned, Sophie admits. I am hiding things. Dangerous things. I know what I'm doing. Sophie, do you? Because from where I stand, it looks like you're risking everything. Your safety, your daughter's safety, for someone you barely know. Michael's jaw tightens. That's not fair. I know enough. No, you don't, Sophie insists, her voice cracking slightly. You know the parts I've chosen to share. You don't know what my world is really like. The manipulation, the threats that don't sound like threats, the way people become chess pieces instead of human beings. They have reached Michael's truck. Caroline has already driven away with Emily, leaving them alone in the parking lot. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the asphalt, the air cooling with approaching evening. Michael leans against the truck's hood, arms crossed. Then tell me all of it. Sophie paces in front of him, her hands gesturing as words tumble out about growing up in her father's carefully controlled empire, about her mother's death when Sophie was 12, about discovering her father's systematic theft of her mother's compositions. He groomed me to be the perfect musical prodigy, she says bitterly. Not for my benefit, but for his legacy. Every performance, every interview, every relationship, all calculated to enhance the Collins brand. She stops pacing, facing Michael directly. And when I was no longer compliant, he arranged a marriage to Victor Chen, a man who built his fortune in international logistics, which is a polite term for smuggling, and worse. Michael listens without interrupting, his expression grave. And the evidence on your necklace, recordings, documents, enough to destroy my father's reputation and possibly lead to criminal charges for Chen. Sophie's hand goes to the pendant, gripping it tightly. The night I ran, I overheard them discussing what would happen if I continued to cause problems. Chen said he would handle it permanently. A heavy silence falls between them. In the distance, a siren wails, then fades. Why didn't you go to the police? Michael finally asks. Sophie laughs without humor. The local police chief plays golf with my father every Sunday. The state attorney attended my 16th birthday party. My father doesn't just buy influence, Michael. He cultivates it, nurtures it over decades. Michael pushes off from the truck, closing the distance between them. Then we need a different approach. Something public. Something they can't control or silence. That was the original plan with the showcase, Sophie reminds him. But now we need something faster. Michael's eyes light with sudden determination. The Mayor's Arts Council reception. It's tomorrow night at the Civic Center. Sophie frowns. What about it? Carolyn mentioned it earlier. She's attending as a gallery owner. Your father will almost certainly be there. It's the kind of cultural event he never misses. Michael's words come faster as the plan forms. It's public. It's heavily covered by local media, and security will be minimal compared to his own events. You want me to confront him there? Sophie asks, uncertainty clouding her features. Not confront, negotiate. With witnesses, with press nearby, with people he can't control. Michael takes her hands in his. He won't risk a scene in that environment. Sophie considers this, her mind working through the possibilities, the risks, the contingencies. It could work, assuming her father behaved rationally, assuming Chen wasn't present, assuming a dozen other variables aligned perfectly. I don't have an invitation, she says finally, and I can't exactly walk in looking like this. She gestures to her thrift store jeans and faded t-shirt. Michael smiles, a spark of mischief lightening his serious expression. Leave that to me. Later that night, after Carolyn has dropped off an exhausted Emily, who triumphantly delivers 4 chocolate-covered strawberries to Sophie, Michael makes a series of phone calls from the back porch, his voice too low for Sophie to hear. When he returns, his face is flushed with success. You're in. Tom's cousin works catering at the Civic Center. He can get you staff credentials for the reception. Sophie raises an eyebrow. You want me to serve hors d'oeuvres to my father? I want you to blend in until the right moment, Michael corrects. Staff can move freely through the event without drawing attention. The plan takes shape over the next several hours. Sophie would enter as catering staff, locate her father, and approach him during a specific window when he was likely to be alone but still visible enough that he wouldn't risk a scene. She would present her terms, call off the engagement to Chen, acknowledge her mother's work publicly, and leave Sophie to live her own life. Or she would release the evidence to every major music publication simultaneously. What if he doesn't believe me? Sophie asks, doubt creeping back in. What if he calls my bluff? Michael's expression is grim. Then it's not a bluff. We release everything. And then what? We run? Sophie shakes her head. Chen would never stop coming after me. One problem at a time, Michael says firmly. First, we deal with your father. They stay up late refining details, preparing for contingencies, and creating backup plans for their backup plans. When Emily's small voice interrupts from the hallway, Daddy, I had a bad dream. They pause, the reality of what is at stake crashing back upon them. Michael goes to comfort his daughter, leaving Sophie alone with her thoughts. She moves to the living room window, pulling back the curtain slightly to peer into the darkness. Somewhere out there, people are watching, waiting, planning, just as she and Michael are planning. The uneasy feeling that has been building in her stomach all day intensifies. Tomorrow night will change everything, one way or another. What she doesn't know is how many other plans are converging toward the same event, or how spectacularly their carefully constructed strategy is about to unravel. The morning passes in a blur of preparation. Michael arranges for Mrs. Rivera to watch Emily for the evening. Sophie practices what she'll say to her father, rehearsing her demands until they sound confident rather than desperate. Michael contacts Tom's cousin to finalize the catering credentials. At noon, Caroline calls to invite Emily for an afternoon of shopping and ice cream. Michael agrees, knowing it will keep his daughter away from the apartment while they make final preparations. Don't tell Aunt Caroline about tonight, he cautions Emily as she leaves. It's a special secret, remember? Emily nods solemnly, making a zipping motion across her lips. I promise. After they leave, Sophie sits at the kitchen table, staring at the flash drive now removed from her pendant and connected to Michael's laptop. On the screen, dozens of music files are organized in folders, along with audio recordings and scanned documents. This is what your mother left you? Michael asks, scrolling through the files. Sophie nods. She kept meticulous records, dates, times original compositions, revisions, everything. And after she died, I recorded my father's conversations whenever he discussed her work with his producers. She clicks on an audio file. Raymond Collins's voice fills the kitchen. The Elizabeth material has tremendous potential. We'll restructure the bridge, update the arrangements, and release it under the Markham name. No one needs to know where it originated. Another voice, presumably a producer. What about publishing rights? I control her estate, Raymond answers smoothly. It's all perfectly legal. Sophie stops the recording, her face tight with anger. He did this dozens of times with different artists, taking her most innovative compositions and parceling them out to his protégés while keeping her name buried. And this? Michael points to a folder labeled Maxwell Reed. Sophie's expression darkens. Maxwell Reed is a powerful music critic. He hated my mother's work, called it derivative, feminine noise masquerading as innovation. His reviews could make or break careers. She opens the folder, revealing a series of vicious reviews of women composers, alongside glowing praise for male artists with similar styles. After one particularly brutal review, my mother stopped trying to publish under her own name. She retreated to composing in private, showing her work only to my father and a few trusted friends. And your father used that to justify taking control of her music, Michael concludes. He always claimed he was protecting her legacy, Sophie says bitterly, making sure her work reached the world in a form that wouldn't be torn apart by critics like Reed. Did you believe him? Sophie is quiet for a moment. Sometimes, when I was younger, he could be very convincing. She closes the laptop. But protection doesn't require erasure. He could have championed her work, fought against the bias. Instead, he exploited it for profit. Michael studies her face. You still care what he thinks of you, don't you? Sophie starts to deny it, then stops. He's my father. For years, his approval was everything. Even now, after all he's done. She shakes her head. It's complicated. Family usually is. Sophie reaches for his hand. Michael, if something goes wrong tonight, it won't. But if it does, promise me you'll take Emily and go. Don't try to negotiate. Don't try to help me. Just go. Michael starts to protest, but Sophie squeezes his hand. Promise me, Emily needs her father. After a long moment, Michael nods reluctantly. I promise, but it won't come to that. The afternoon sun slants through the window, casting long shadows across the kitchen table. In the quiet apartment, time seems suspended, the calm before a storm they both know is coming. At the Grand Hotel across town, Caroline Wright sits in the luxurious lobby lounge, watching Emily chat animatedly with the ice cream parlor server. Her niece's enthusiasm is infectious, drawing smiles from everyone nearby. Carolyn's phone vibrates with an incoming call. The number is unlisted, but she answers anyway, her gallery business often bringing calls from private collectors. Caroline Wright. Ms. Wright, a cultured male voice responds. My name is Raymond Collins. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance, do we, sis? Caroline's breath catches. Raymond Collins, the music industry titan whose charity foundation had recently expressed interest in supporting her gallery's community arts program. Mr. Collins, she says carefully, this is unexpected. I'll be direct, Ms. Wright. You recently reconnected with your brother-in-law, Michael Hayes, and his house guest. Not a question, a statement. Carolyn's gaze flicks to Emily, who's happily occupied with her ice cream sundae. I'm listening. That house guest is my daughter, Sophie. She's going through a difficult period, making unfortunate choices. I'm concerned for her welfare. What does this have to do with me? Carolyn asks, though she already suspects the answer. I understand you care deeply for your niece, Emily, isn't it? A charming child. I also understand she has a heart condition requiring specialized care that isn't inexpensive. The implied offer hangs in the air between them. Carolyn watches Emily, remembering Lisa's pale face in the hospital bed, her whispered plea, take care of them for me, Carr. Promise me. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Collins? Information, Ms. Wright, nothing more. In exchange, I could ensure Emily receives treatment from the finest pediatric cardiologists in the country. My foundation has connections with several medical research facilities. Caroline's fingers tighten around her phone. And Michael? What happens to him? Michael Hayes is not my concern. My daughter is. Raymond's voice softens slightly. I assure you, I want only what's best for Sophie. She's unwell, making rash decisions. She needs help, not encouragement to continue this rebellion. Carolyn watches Emily lick chocolate sauce from her spoon, her small face the mirror image of Lisa's. The weight of her sister's last request presses down on her. They're planning something, she says finally, for the mayor's arts council reception tonight. Go on. Sophie intends to confront you there. Something about evidence she has against you. Carolyn hesitates. Michael is helping her. Raymond is silent for a moment. Thank you, Ms. Wright. You've made the right decision. I'll have my assistant contact you regarding Emily's medical care. After the call ends, Carolyn sits motionless, her own ice cream melting untouched. Emily looks up and waves, chocolate smeared around her smiling mouth. Caroline waves back, her heart heavy with the certainty that she's just betrayed Michael's trust, and possibly her sister's. But if it saves Emily, isn't that what matters most? The Mayor's Arts Council reception transforms the Civic Center's austere architecture into a glittering showcase of local culture. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over displays of artwork, while string musicians play softly in the corner. Waitstaff in black uniforms circulate with trays of champagne and artfully arranged appetizers. Among them moves Sophie, nearly unrecognizable in the standard uniform, her auburn hair pulled into a severe bun, minimal makeup accentuating her features just enough to alter them subtly. She balances a tray of champagne flutes with practiced ease, a skill recalled from mandatory etiquette lessons in her youth. Through her earpiece, Michael's voice provides steady guidance. He's outside in the parking garage, coordinating from his truck, using the building's service entrance security cameras, which Tom's cousin has granted him access to. Your father just arrived, he reports. East entrance with 2 men. Security, most likely. Sophie acknowledges with a subtle adjustment of her collar, their prearranged signal, and continues her circuit of the room, gaze carefully downcast as she approaches the east section. Raymond Collins makes an impressive entrance, as always. Tall, distinguished, with silver hair that catches the light, and a smile that conveys absolute confidence. He moves through the crowd with practiced charm, stopping to exchange pleasantries with the mayor, compliment a local artist, accept congratulations on his foundation's latest charitable endeavor. Sophie's heart hammers against her ribs as she nears him, close enough now to hear his familiar laugh. The public one, slightly warmer than the version reserved for private disappointments. She remembers that laugh from countless recitals where she had performed adequately but not exceptionally. He's moving toward the Northwest Gallery. Michael's voice comes through the earpiece. That area is less crowded, perfect for your approach. Sophie alters her course, circulating around the perimeter to intercept her father in the quieter space. The plan is simple: offer champagne, use their code phrase to identify herself, request 5 minutes of private conversation. The threat of public exposure will keep him civil. She turns the corner into the smaller gallery space where Raymond stands alone, examining a large abstract painting. This is it, the perfect moment. Sophie squares her shoulders, adjusts her grip on the tray, and steps forward. Champagne, sir? Raymond turns, his polite smile already forming. Then he looks directly at her, and Sophie sees the exact moment of recognition, a slight widening of his eyes, a momentary pause in his perfectly composed demeanor. Hello, father, she says quietly. To his credit, Raymond recovers almost instantly. He selects a glass from her tray with steady hands, his smile never faltering. Sophie, what an unexpected surprise. I'd like 5 minutes of your time, she says, keeping her voice low. Privately, but not secluded. I have terms to discuss. Raymond sips his champagne, gaze sweeping the room casually. I'm afraid my schedule is quite full this evening. Make time, Sophie replies, a hard edge entering her voice. Unless you'd prefer I discuss my mother's stolen compositions with the music critic from the Tribune. He's by the sculpture garden, very eager for an exclusive. That lands. A muscle twitches in Raymond's jaw. Always so dramatic, Sophie. Very well. 5 minutes. The terrace in 10 minutes. I have to conclude a conversation with the mayor first. Sophie nods once and moves away, heart racing. In her ear, Michael's voice is triumphant. Perfect. That went exactly as planned. The terrace has security cameras and is visible from the main hall. He won't try anything there. Sophie circulates with her tray, maintaining her cover while watching the minutes tick by. 8 minutes, 9, 10. She makes her way toward the terrace doors, setting down her tray on a service table. I'm heading to the terrace now, she murmurs, adjusting her collar. Copy that, Michael responds. I can see the terrace entrance from camera 3. I'll be watching. Sophie pushes open the glass doors, stepping into the cool night air. The terrace is lit with soft landscape lighting, creating pools of illumination among shadows. A few guests stand in small groups near the entrance, but the far end is empty, offering the illusion of privacy while remaining visible. Raymond is already there, gazing out over the city skyline, champagne glass dangling from his fingers. Sophie approaches steadily, each step bringing her closer to the confrontation she's been preparing for since her escape. "Your new look is interesting," Raymond comments without turning. "Not your best color palette, but effective enough as a disguise." "I didn't come to discuss fashion, Father." "No? Then perhaps you'd like to explain why you're working in a laundromat and living with a city maintenance worker." Now he turns, his expression mild, but his eyes sharp. "Really, Sophie? I raised you for better things." Sophie refuses to be baited. "I'm here to negotiate terms." "Terms?" Raymond repeats, as if testing an unfamiliar word. "How businesslike." "Very well. Let's hear these terms." Sophie takes a deep breath, forcing her voice to remain steady. "First, you will call off my engagement to Victor Chen permanently. Second, you will publicly acknowledge my mother's work and her rightful authorship of the compositions you've claimed for others. Third, you will leave me alone to live my life as I choose." Raymond's eyebrows rise slightly. "That's quite a list. And what do I receive in exchange for these considerable concessions?" "My silence," Sophie replies. "The evidence I have, the recordings, the documentation of your systematic theft of mother's work, your dealings with Chen, stays private." "Ah." Raymond swirls the champagne in his glass, watching the liquid catch the light. "Blackmail doesn't suit you, Sophie. Your mother would be disappointed." The casual invocation of her mother sends a spike of rage through Sophie's chest. "Don't you dare speak for her. You erased her, her talent, her legacy, even her name from album credits." "I protected her legacy," Raymond counters, his voice hardening. "I ensured her music reached the world. Under other people's names. For your profit. For your future," Raymond snaps, his composure cracking slightly. "Everything I've built, everything has been for you." Sophie laughs bitterly, "Including selling me to a criminal." Raymond sets his glass down on the terrace railing, his movements precise and controlled. "Victor Chen is a businessman with international connections. The allegations against him are unsubstantiated. I heard him threaten to permanently handle me if I continued to resist," Sophie says flatly. "You sat there and said nothing." Something flickers in Raymond's eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or concern, but it vanishes quickly. "You misunderstood. Victor can be direct in his speech, but he would never harm you. Like he didn't harm the journalist who investigated his shipping operations? Or the customs official who suddenly withdrew corruption allegations after his daughter's accident?" Raymond's expression cools. "You've been reading tabloid conspiracy theories." "I've been discovering the truth," Sophie counters. "And now you have a choice. Meet my terms, or I release everything to the press, to the police, to every contact in the industry." For a long moment, Raymond is silent, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. When he finally speaks, his voice is almost gentle. "You truly believe I'm the villain in this story, don't you?" "Your actions speak for themselves." Raymond sighs, suddenly looking older, the confidence draining from his posture. "Sophie, come home. We can discuss all of this privately, as a family. Whatever concerns you have about Victor, about your mother's work, we can address them." The apparent sincerity in his voice makes Sophie hesitate. This is the father she remembered from her childhood, reasonable, willing to listen. But experience has taught her to distrust this version of Raymond Collins. It appeared only when manipulation was more effective than force. "No," she says firmly, "I'm not coming home. Those are my terms. Do you accept them?" Raymond straightens, his moment of vulnerability vanishing. "And if I refuse?" "Then I go public with everything," Sophie says, her hand moving to the pendant around her neck. "Starting tonight." In her earpiece, Michael's voice suddenly crackles with urgency. "Sophie, something's wrong. Security's moving toward the terrace. Get out of there now." But it's too late. The terrace doors open and two men in dark suits step out, flanking a third figure, A man Sophie recognizes instantly, her blood turning to ice in her veins. Victor Chen, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit with sharp features and cold eyes that fix on her with predatory focus. "Sophie," he says, his voice deceptively soft. "We've been so worried about you." Sophie takes an instinctive step backward. This was supposed to be a private conversation between family, which I'll soon be part of, officially. Chen agrees, smoothly. He turns to Raymond. "Your daughter looks unwell, Raymond. Perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere more comfortable." In her ear, Michael is speaking rapidly. "Sophie, they're blocking the main exit. Head for the service door on the far side of the terrace. I'm coming to you." Sophie assesses her options quickly. The main terrace doors are indeed blocked by Chen's men. The service entrance is perhaps 15 feet away, partially concealed behind a large planter. If she could reach it— "I'm not going anywhere with you," she says, directing her words to Chen but keeping Raymond in her peripheral vision. "This reception is full of witnesses, journalists. Creating a scene would be unfortunate." Chen smiles thinly. "No one will witness anything inappropriate. You're simply feeling faint. Understandable, given your recent difficulties. Your father and I are helping you go into quieter space." As if on cue, one of Chen's men steps forward, reaching for Sophie's arm. She jerks away, bumping into the terrace railing. "Don't touch me." "Sophie," Raymond says, his tone conciliatory but with an undercurrent of warning. "Don't make this difficult." In that moment, Sophie understands with perfect clarity that her father had never intended to negotiate. This had been a trap from the beginning, using her own plan against her. The realization strikes her like a physical blow, driving the air from her lungs. "Michael," she whispers, knowing he can hear her through the earpiece. "It's a setup." She has to move now. In one fluid motion, Sophie grabs Raymond's abandoned champagne glass and hurls it at the nearest security guard. The glass shatters against his chest, startling him enough to create a momentary diversion. Sophie bolts for the service door, her heart pounding in her ears. Behind her, she hears Chen's cold command. "Get her, now!" She reaches the door, yanks it open, and plunges into a dimly lit service corridor. "I'm in the corridor," she gasps into the earpiece. "Which way?" "Left," Michael instructs, "then second right. It leads to the loading dock." Sophie runs, her catering shoes slipping on the polished floor. Behind her, the door crashes open. Pursuit. She skids around the left turn, nearly colliding with a startled server carrying a tray of empty glasses. "Sorry," she calls over her shoulder, not slowing. "Second right, there." She veers into another corridor, this one lined with storage racks. "Almost there," Michael encourages. "Loading dock door is ahead on your left. I'm pulling up now." Sophie can see the exit now, a rectangle of night visible through the small window in the door. Freedom is just steps away. Then a figure steps out from between two storage racks, directly into her path. "Caroline?" Sophie barely manages to stop her headlong flight, confusion flooding her system. "Caroline, what are you—" "Emily told me everything," Caroline interrupts, her expression grim. "About the plan, about who you really are. Michael wouldn't listen to reason, so I had to take matters into my own hands." Horror dawns as the pieces fall into place. "You called my father. You told him about the plan." Caroline's chin lifts defiantly. "I protected my family. Michael is too blinded by whatever this is between you two to see the danger you've put them in." In Sophie's ear, Michael's voice is frantic. "Sophie, what's happening? Security's closing in on your position." The sound of running footsteps echoes from the corridor behind her, seconds away. Sophie has no time for explanations or accusations. "I'm sorry," she says to Caroline, then shoves past her, slamming her shoulder into the older woman hard enough to knock her aside. Sophie bursts through the exit door onto the loading dock just as Michael's truck screeches to a halt at the platform. He leans across to fling open the passenger door. "Get in!" Sophie leaps from the dock to the truck, scrambling inside as the exit door behind her crashes open. Michael floors the accelerator before she's even closed her door, the truck lurching forward with a roar of protest from the engine. In the side mirror, Sophie catches a glimpse of Chen's men spilling onto the loading dock, with Raymond and Chen not far behind them, and there is Caroline, her expression a complex mixture of anger and something that might have been regret. Then they're around the corner, tires squealing as Michael navigates the parking structure at dangerous speed. "What happened insane?" he demands, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "I lost visual when you entered the service corridor." "It was Caroline," Sophie says, still processing the betrayal. "She told him everything. About the plan. About me staying with you." She turns to him, fresh fear blooming. "Michael, where's Emily?" "With Mrs. Rivera. I called her after dropping you off, asked her to watch Emily until we got back." His jaw works. "I can't believe Caroline would—" "She thinks she's protecting you," Sophie interrupts, "and she's not entirely wrong." They emerge from the parking structure onto the main street, Michael immediately turning to blend into traffic, driving exactly at the speed limit to avoid attention. "We need to get Emily and go," he says. "They know where we live. They'll be watching the house." Sophie shakes her head. "No, you need to get Emily and go. I'll find another way." Michael shoots her an incredulous look. "That's not happening." "Be reasonable, Michael," Sophie pleads. "This was my fight, not yours. I've put you and Emily in enough danger already." "We're in this together now," Michael insists. "I made that choice with open eyes." "But no," his voice leaves no room for argument. "We stick to the contingency plan. Get Emily, get the emergency bags from the storage unit, and head to the cabin." The cabin is Michael's backup plan, a small hunting property owned by a former coworker, currently unused and off any records connected to Michael. They had prepared it 3 days ago, stocking it with basic supplies. Sophie wants to argue further to make him understand that separating is the only way to keep Emily safe. But the determined set of his jaw tells her it would be futile. For now, at least, they would stay together. They drive in tense silence, taking a circuitous route to ensure they aren't followed. Sophie keeps checking the side mirror, expecting to see dark sedans in pursuit. The night seems to press in around them, shadows concealing unknown threats. When Michael's phone rings, they both jump. He glances at the screen, then answers on speaker. "Mrs. Rivera, is everything okay?" The elderly woman's voice comes through, trembling with agitation. "Michael, you need to come home now. There are men here asking questions about Sophie and you. They showed badges, said they were federal agents." Michael and Sophie exchange alarmed glances. "Federal agents? Did they say which agency?" "They said FBI. They're talking to the neighbors, showing pictures. One of them mentioned Emily." Michael's expression hardens. "Mr. Rivera, listen carefully. Is Emily still with you?" "Yes, she's asleep in my spare room." "Good, don't open the door for anyone. We'll be there in 20 minutes. He ends the call immediately, changing direction. "FBI doesn't make sense," he mutters. "This isn't a federal case." "They're not real agents," Sophie says with certainty. "It's Chen's people. He has connections everywhere, uses fake credentials to intimidate." She presses her hands against her temples. "This is escalating too quickly. We need to separate. You get Emily, I'll lead them away." "And then what?" Michael demands. "They'll just keep hunting you." "I have the evidence," Sophie reminds him, touching her pendant. "I can release it from anywhere, make it public. Once it's out, they lose their leverage." Michael is shaking his head before she finishes speaking. "Too dangerous. If they catch you alone, if they catch us together, Emily loses her father." Sophie counters, her voice breaking. "I can't be responsible for that." The truck slows as they approach Mrs. Rivera's neighborhood. Michael pulls over a block away, killing the headlights. For a long moment, he sits in silence, conflict evident in every line of his body. 2 hours, he finally says. "We get Emily. We go to the cabin as planned. If the situation doesn't improve in 2 hours, we reconsider." He turns to face her fully, "But we make that decision together. Promise me." Sophie wants to refuse, to insist on her plan, but the raw emotion in Michael's eyes stops her. This isn't just about safety or strategy anymore. It's about trust, about the connection that has grown between them against all odds. "I promise," she whispers. Part 3. They approach Mrs. Rivera's apartment building, cautiously, using the service entrance Michael has access to through his maintenance work. The hallways are quiet with no sign of the supposed federal agents. Mrs. Rivera opens her door immediately at Michael's soft knock, her weathered face lined with worry. "They came by twice," she whispers, ushering them inside. Asked if I knew where you were, if Emily was with me. I said you were working a night shift and Emily was with her aunt. Thank you, Michael says fervently. Is Emily still asleep? Mrs. Rivera nods toward the small second bedroom. Like an angel, but Michael, what trouble are you in? These men seemed very serious. It's complicated, he answers, already moving toward the bedroom. But we're handling it. Sophie hangs back, her presence an unspoken question in Mrs. Rivera's concerned gaze. I'm sorry for bringing this to your door, Sophie says quietly. You've been kind to them. The older woman studies her for a moment, then surprises Sophie by patting her hand. He smiles again since you came. Before, there was only shadows in his eyes. And the simple observation strikes Sophie deeply. Has she truly brought light back into Michael's life, even amidst all this danger? The thought both warms and terrifies her. Michael emerges from the bedroom with Emily in his arms, the child still half asleep, her head resting trustingly on her father's shoulder. Time to go, Mrs. R. Thank you for everything. They leave through the service entrance, Michael carrying Emily while Sophie scouts ahead. The night is eerily quiet. The usual neighborhood sounds muted as if the darkness itself is holding its breath. They've just reached the truck when headlights sweep around the corner, illuminating them in harsh white light. The black sedan accelerates toward them, tires squealing on asphalt. Get in, Michael shouts, already yanking open the back door and depositing Emily inside. Sophie scrambles into the passenger seat as Michael slides behind the wheel. The truck roars to life, shooting forward, just as the sedan skids to a stop where they had been standing. Hold on, Michael warns, executing a sharp turn that has them all pressed against their seatbelts. In the bow, Emily is now fully awake, her eyes wide with fear. Daddy, what's happening? Just a little adventure, sweetheart, Michael answers, his voice deliberately calm despite his white-knuckle grip on the steering wheel. Remember our camping game? We're playing it for real now. It's a code they have established. A way to prepare Emily for the contingency plan without frightening her. Sophie watches in the side mirror as the sedan falls in behind them, maintaining a steady pursuit. They're still following, she reports. Michael nods grimly. I see them. He makes another turn, this one leading toward the industrial district. Storage unit first, then the highway. Sophie twists in her seat to check on Emily. The child is clutching her backpack. The emergency pack Michael had prepared weeks ago, disguised as a camping game with essential items. It's going to be okay, Sophie tells her, trying to project confidence she doesn't feel. Your dad has a great plan. Emily's small face is solemn in the intermittent glow of passing streetlights. Is it because of the bad men? The ones after you? Sophie exchanges a quick glance with Michael. How much does Emily understand? Yes, she admits. Some people are looking for me, and they're not very nice. Emily nods, accepting this with the straightforward logic of childhood. That's why we practice the camping game. Daddy said we might need to help a friend someday. Sophie's throat tightens with emotion. Even before she'd arrived on their doorstep, Michael had been preparing, not just for his own emergencies, but for the possibility of helping someone else. The sedan is still behind them, maintaining distance but clearly tracking their movements. Michael navigates the truck through a series of turns designed to determine if they are indeed being followed. No question now, he mutters. They're definitely on us. Look, Emily's voice comes from the back seat. Another car like the first one. Sophie checks the mirror again. The sedan is still there, but now a second vehicle has joined it. A black SUV with tinted windows. Her stomach drops. Michael, she says urgently, there are two of them now. He curses under his breath, accelerating. The truck responds sluggishly. Not built for speed. We need to lose them before we get to the cabin. How? They're faster than us. Michael's eyes dart to the upcoming exit. We improvise. He swerves suddenly, cutting across 2 lanes of sparse traffic to make the exit at the last possible moment. Horns blare behind them as the sedan attempts to follow, nearly colliding with a minivan. Hold on, Michael calls as they hit the exit ramp at dangerous speed. Sophie braces herself against the dashboard, while in the back seat, Emily lets out a sound between a scream and a laugh, still young enough to find the roller coaster motion exciting rather than terrifying. The truck fishtails slightly as they reach the bottom of the ramp, Michael expertly correcting before taking a sharp right turn. The sedan makes the exit but overshoots the turn, buying them precious seconds. "Where are we going?" Sophie asks, scanning their new surroundings. A commercial district, mostly closed at this hour, with wide parking lots and strip malls. "Somewhere to switch vehicles," Michael answers, already scanning the area with practiced efficiency. His gaze settles on a motel up ahead, its parking lot half full. There. He pulls into the motel lot, driving directly to the back where several cars sit in unlit spaces. Without hesitation, he parks next to an older model sedan, similar in size to the truck. "Out quickly," he orders, already opening his door. "Emily, bring your backpack." They scramble from the truck, Michael immediately moving to the sedan and pulling tools from his pocket. Sophie watches in shock as he efficiently jimmies the lock, the door opening with a soft click. "You know how to steal cars?" she asks incredulously. "Borrow," he corrects, already reaching under the steering column. "I worked repo before city maintenance. Get in, both of you." Sophie helps Emily into the back seat, then slides into the passenger side just as Michael manages to start the engine. As they pull away, she sees headlights sweeping into the motel entrance, their pursuers minutes behind. Will they follow the truck or us, she wonders aloud. "Hopefully the truck, at least for a while," Michael says, keeping the borrowed car exactly at the speed limit as they rejoin the main road. "I left my phone in the glove compartment. If they're tracking it, they'll follow the wrong vehicle." Sophie looks back at Emily, who is surprisingly calm given the circumstances. "You okay back there, superstar?" Emily nods solemnly. "Is this part of the camping game too?" "Something like that," Sophie says, exchanging a concerned glance with Michael. How much trauma are they inflicting on this child? How much danger has Sophie brought into her young life? They drive in tense silence for several miles, Michael taking a convoluted route that doubles back on itself several times to ensure they aren't followed. Finally, they turn onto a narrow country road that winds into increasingly dense forest. "Almost there," Michael says, his voice tight with exhaustion. "Another 15 minutes. Sophie allows herself to breathe a little easier. Perhaps they've lost their pursuers. Perhaps they'll have time at the cabin to regroup, to plan their next move, to figure out how to end this nightmare once and for all. It's this brief moment of hope that makes what happens next all the more devastating. They round a sharp curve and suddenly bright headlights blind them, coming from a vehicle parked sideways across the narrow road, blocking their path. Michael slams on the brakes, the borrowed car skidding on loose gravel. "No," Sophie whispers, recognition and dread flooding her system. "How did they—" Before Michael can reverse, another vehicle appears behind them, effectively boxing them in. Doors open, figures emerge, men in dark suits moving with military precision. In the harsh glare of headlights, a familiar silhouette approaches their car. Raymond Collins, his expression unreadable in the shadows. And beside him, Victor Chen, a thin smile playing on his lips. "End of the road," Michael says quietly, his hand reaching for Sophie's. "What now?" Sophie looks from Michael to Emily, the child now frightened and confused in the back seat, then to her father and Chen, advancing with the confidence of predators who know their prey is cornered. In that moment, her path becomes crystal clear. "I'm going to end this," she says, squeezing Michael's hand once before releasing it. "Take care of Emily." Before he can stop her, Sophie is out of the car, walking forward to meet her fate, and hopefully to save the two people who have come to mean everything to her. Behind her, she hears Michael's door open, his voice calling her name. But she doesn't turn back. She can't. This confrontation has always been inevitable, and she will face it on her terms. "Hello, Father," she calls, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I believe we have unfinished business." Raymond steps into the full glare of the headlights, his silver hair gleaming like a crown. "Indeed we do, Sophie. Indeed we do." What Raymond Collins can't see, what Sophie prays no one will notice, is her hand at her throat, removing the pendant that contains everything. With a subtle movement, she slips it into Michael's pocket as she passes him, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent communication. Whatever happens next, the truth will survive, and perhaps, somehow, so will they. The forest holds its breath. Night creatures fall silent as headlights carve harsh geometries through the darkness, illuminating the narrow road where Sophie stands. Her shadow stretches long behind her, touching the borrowed car where Michael remains with Emily. That small connection, her shadow reaching back to them, gives her the courage to step forward. Raymond Collins studies his daughter with the critical eye of a composer examining a flawed composition. "You've led us on quite a chase," he says, his voice carrying the precise diction that has intimidated music executives for decades. "All this drama, Sophie, and for what?" Sophie stops several feet away, maintaining distance from both her father and Chen, whose smile has transformed into something predatory. She keeps her spine straight, chin lifted, the posture of a performer about to step onto stage. Years of recitals have taught her to conceal trembling hands and racing pulse. "For freedom," she answers simply, "something you've never understood." Chen steps forward, his movements fluid and controlled. "Freedom is an illusion, Sophie. Everything has a price. Everything exists within structures of power." His accent is barely perceptible, carefully cultivated away through years of American education. "Your father and I have created a beneficial arrangement. Your rebellion serves no purpose." Behind Sophie, car doors open and close. Michael's footsteps crunch on gravel as he approaches, stopping just behind her left shoulder. His presence radiates protective heat. "Emily?" Sophie whispers without turning. "Locked in the car. She's scared, but okay." Michael's voice is low, meant only for her, then louder. "This has gone far enough. Whatever business exists between you, it doesn't require this level of intimidation." Raymond's eyebrows rise fractionally, as if surprised by the maintenance worker's audacity. "Mr. Hayes, I presume. Your involvement in my family's affairs is unfortunate. I suggest you return to your daughter and drive away while that option remains available." "I'm not leaving Sophie," Michael states flatly. Chen's men, 4 in total, shift positions, forming a loose circle around them. One touches the bulge beneath his jacket in unmistakable warning. Sophie feels something press against her back. Michael passing something into the waistband of her pants beneath her shirt. The gun from the truck. Her breath catches, but she keeps her expression neutral. "Father," she says, redirecting attentions to herself, "you claim to care about me, about my future. Prove it. Call off this engagement. Acknowledge Mom's work. Let me live my own life." Raymond sighs that sound genuine enough to momentarily crack his composed facade. "Sophie, your mother's work was brilliant but deeply personal. Releasing it would have exposed her vulnerabilities to public scrutiny. I protected her legacy the only way I knew how." "By stealing it," Sophie challenges. "By preserving it," Raymond counters. "By ensuring the most important parts found their way to audiences who could appreciate them. Under other people's names," Sophie says bitterly, "for your profit." A flicker of something, regret perhaps, crosses Raymond's features. "The music industry isn't kind to women composers, Sophie, especially not women with unconventional styles. Your mother's work would have been dismissed, criticized, forgotten. I made sure it lived." For the first time, doubt creeps into Sophie's certainty. Her father seems sincere, genuinely believing he had acted to protect her mother's legacy. But that doesn't justify the theft, the lies, the erasure of her mother's name. "And Chen," she asks, "how do you justify that arrangement?" Raymond's gaze shifts to the man beside him. "Victor's business interests align with ours. The marriage secures important international opportunities for the Collins brand while providing his enterprises with cultural legitimacy." "His enterprises," Sophie repeats incredulously. "You mean his criminal operations? Human trafficking? Drug smuggling?" Chen's smile vanishes. "Careful, Sophie. Such accusations are dangerous without evidence." The pendant, now in Michael's possession, feels like a burning presence between them. Sophie wonders if her father knows what she has recorded. Conversations between him and Chen. Discussions of problematic journalists who had later suffered accidents. Arrangements for moving special cargo through music tour equipment. "I have evidence," she says clearly, "enough to destroy both of you." Chen's hand twitches toward his jacket, but Raymond places a restraining hand on his arm. "Where is this evidence, Sophie?" Raymond asks. "Somewhere safe," she replies. "And if anything happens to me or to Michael and Emily, it goes public immediately." It's a bluff. The evidence is literally feet away, but she delivers it with the conviction of a virtuoso performer. Years of recitals under her father's critical gaze have trained her for this moment. Raymond studies her, professional assessment warring with paternal concern. You've changed, he observes, neither approving nor condemning. The Sophie who left would never have made such a threat. The Sophie who left was afraid, she acknowledges. I'm not anymore. A lie, of course. Fear pulses through her with each heartbeat, but fear can coexist with courage. Her mother had taught her that during the long months of her illness, facing death with clear-eyed grace. Chen's patience visibly thins. Enough conversation. Sophie comes with us now or consequences become inevitable. He gestures sharply, and his men take a synchronized step forward. Michael moves slightly, positioning himself more directly beside Sophie rather than behind her. A small shift, but meaningful. They will face this together. I have a counter-proposal, comes a new voice from the darkness. All heads turn toward the source, the woods beside the road, where a figure emerges from between the trees. Caroline Wright steps into the periphery of the headlights, her elegant features set in determined lines. Caroline? Michael's voice cracks with disbelief. Fixing what I broke, she interrupts, approaching steadily. She looks directly at Raymond. Mr. Collins, I'm the one who told you about your daughter's whereabouts. I believed I was protecting my family. Raymond inclines his head slightly. And we appreciated your assistance, Miss Wright. I was wrong, Caroline continues, stopping beside Michael. I didn't understand the situation. Now I do. She reaches into her jacket and withdraws a small recording device. I've been recording everything since I arrived. Your threats, Mr. Chen's implicit admissions regarding his enterprises, your men's armed presence. Chen's face darkens. Take that from her, he orders sharply. Carolyn steps back. This is broadcasting live to my assistant. If the transmission ends, she sends it to every news outlet in the state. It's another bluff. Sophie can see it in the slight tension around Caroline's eyes, but it's delivered with the conviction of a woman accustomed to being believed. Raymond's expression remains impassive, but his right hand twitches slightly against his leg, a pianist's tell that Sophie recognizes from childhood. He's recalculating, adjusting his approach to this unexpected variable. Ms. Wright, he says smoothly, I believe you've misinterpreted a family disagreement as something more sinister. My daughter has made some concerning choices lately. We're simply bringing her home where she belongs. With armed men? Carolyn challenges. On a deserted road at night? That's not family concern, Mr. Collins. That's coercion. Sophie stares at Caroline, struggling to reconcile this fierce advocate with the woman who had betrayed them hours earlier. Michael seems equally confused, his posture tense with uncertainty. Why are you helping us? He asks Caroline directly. Caroline's gaze remains fixed on Raymond and Chen. Because Emily called me after you left Mrs. Rivera's. She was crying, terrified. Now she looks at Michael, her expression softening. She said the bad men were going to take Sophie away, and then you'd be sad again. Just like when Lisa died. The simple observation from a child's perspective strikes them all into momentary silence. Even Raymond seems affected, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. In the stillness, Sophie notices Emily's small face pressed against the car window, watching them. The child whose heart condition makes her physically vulnerable, but whose emotional perception makes her wise beyond her years. Emily shouldn't be seeing this, Sophie murmurs to Michael. She needs her medicine, the stress. As if on cue, Emily's small hand comes up to her chest, her face contorting slightly. Michael, Sophie says urgently, Emily's having chest pains. Michael turns immediately, starting toward the car, but one of Chen's men blocks his path. Let him go to his daughter, Raymond says sharply. She has a heart condition. Chen hesitates, then nods to his man, who steps aside. Michael rushes to the car, yanking open the back door to reach Emily. Sophie turns back to her father, a new determination hardening her resolve. This ends now, she says, her voice low but carrying in the night air. Here's what happens. You call off the engagement. You publicly acknowledge Mom's work. You leave me and Michael and Emily alone. In exchange, the evidence stays private. Chen starts to object, but Raymond silences him with a raised hand. And if I refuse? Raymond asks, his voice neutral. Then 3 different things are released simultaneously, Sophie replies. My evidence, Caroline's recording, and the story Emily's school has been helping her write about her new friend Sophie, the pianist who's been hiding from bad men. This last part is pure invention, but Sophie delivers it with absolute conviction. The image of a child's innocent account reaching the public, the devastating authenticity it would carry, is a masterstroke. Raymond's composure finally cracks. For a moment, genuine anguish transforms his features. You would destroy everything I've built, everything I intended for you to inherit. I never wanted your empire, Father, Sophie says, her voice gentling slightly. I just wanted to make music, to be free. The tableau holds. Sophie facing her father, Michael and Carolyn flanking her, Chen and his men poised for violence at Raymond's command. In the borrowed car, Emily presses her small face against the window, witnessing a confrontation she can't fully understand, but whose importance she instinctively recognizes. Behind them, new headlights appear on the road, approaching slowly, then stopping. A car door opens and closes. Footsteps approach. What's happening here? Asks an authoritative female voice. A woman in her late 40s steps into the light, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, her expression equally severe. She wears no uniform, but everything about her bearing suggests law enforcement. Chen's men exchange uneasy glances. This is a private matter, Raymond begins. On a public road with multiple vehicles blocking passage, armed men and a child in distress. The woman produces a badge. Detective Maria Diaz, State Police. Someone care to explain? Sophie feels a surge of hope, quickly tempered by caution. Her father's influence is extensive. Is this woman truly independent or another player in his game? Detective, Raymond says smoothly, there's been a misunderstanding. My daughter. Your daughter appears to be standing her ground quite clearly, Diaz interrupts, her gaze moving from Raymond to Sophie. Are you in danger, miss? Before Sophie can answer, Emily cries out from the car, a small sound of pain that cuts through the night like a knife. Michael's voice follows, urgent. She needs her medication. It's in the emergency bag at the cabin. Diaz assesses the situation quickly. Mr. Collins, you and your associate should leave. Now. Whatever family dispute is happening here can be resolved another time when there isn't a child requiring medical attention. This doesn't concern you, Detective, Chen says coldly. Diaz's hand moves to her hip, where her service weapon is holstered. I'm making it my concern. Raymond studies the detective, weighing options. Then his gaze shifts to the car, where Emily's distress is evident even from a distance. Something shifts in his expression. A softening, a recognition. Victor, he says quietly, we're leaving. Raymond, Chen begins to protest. There's a child in medical distress. Raymond cuts him off. We're leaving. Chen's face contorts with barely contained rage, but after a tense moment, he nods to his men, who begin returning to their vehicles. This isn't finished, Chen tells Sophie, his voice pitched low so only she can hear. Not by far. Detective Raymond says formally, I apologize for the disturbance. My daughter and I have had a disagreement. But you're right, this is neither the time nor the place. Diaz nods, her expression remaining skeptical. I'll need statements from everyone involved, but first let's get the child what she needs. Raymond hesitates, then looks directly at Sophie. The cabin is 15 minutes north on this road, then right at the fork. We'll discuss this tomorrow, when heads are cooler. His gaze flicks to Emily in the car. Take care of the child. With that, he turns and walks away, Chen following reluctantly. Their vehicles pull out, executing three-point turns on the narrow road before heading back the way they came. Only when the last taillights disappear around a curve does Sophie allow herself to breathe. Thank you, Detective. Diaz's stern expression doesn't waver. Don't thank me yet. I still need to understand what's happening here. She looks at the borrowed car. And why you're driving a vehicle reported stolen from a motel parking lot. Michael emerges from the back seat, Emily in his arms. The child's face is pale, her breathing slightly labored. Please, he says, we need to get her medication first. I'll explain everything after. Diaz studies Emily, her professional detachment cracking slightly. My car, now. I'll drive you to this cabin. She looks at Caroline. You follow in their vehicle. Minutes later, they're speeding down the forest road in Diaz's unmarked police car, Emily half lying across the back seat with her head in Sophie's lap. Michael sits in front, giving directions. Left at the next fork, he says, twisting to check on Emily. How's she doing? Hanging in there, Sophie reports, stroking Emily's hair. Her pulse is fast but steady. The medicine will help, Michael assures her, though worry lines his face. In the driver's seat, Diaz maintains her focus on the road, but her questions continue. So the child has a heart condition. Same one that took her mother? Michael looks at her sharply. How did you know about Lisa? I don't exist in a vacuum, Mr. Hayes. When a reported stolen vehicle is involved in what looks like a potential kidnapping, I run the plates of all cars at the scene. Yours came back registered to you. A quick check showed a deceased spouse, a minor child, and a second shift maintenance job with the city. Her tone softens slightly. I'm thorough. It wasn't kidnapping, Sophie says. We were running from my father and his business partner. Raymond Collins, the music producer, Diaz states rather than asks. And the other man? Victor Chen, international businessman, and much more dangerous than he appears. Diaz's eyes meet Sophie's in the rearview mirror. I know the name. His shipping company has been on our radar for some time. Difficult to build a case when witnesses have a habit of recanting or disappearing. Sophie's heart pounds. Is it possible they've stumbled upon an ally who isn't in her father's pocket? Here, Michael says suddenly, turn right onto this dirt road. The cabin appears through the trees, a simple structure with a main room, small kitchen area, and 2 bedrooms. Solar panels provide basic electricity, and a generator stands ready for backup. Michael has prepared well despite hoping they would never need this refuge. Diaz pulls up at the front, lights illuminating the rustic porch. Get the child inside. I'll help. Michael doesn't waste time arguing. He carries Emily into the cabin, Sophie rushing ahead to turn on lights and find the emergency bag with Emily's medication. Caroline pulls up in the borrowed car a minute later, joining them inside without a word. Emily's medication works quickly. Within 20 minutes, her color improves and her breathing eases. She falls into an exhausted sleep on one of the cabin's beds. Michael sitting beside her, his hand gentle on her forehead. In the main room, Sophie faces Detective Diaz across the small kitchen table. Caroline stands by the window, keeping watch. Start from the beginning, Diaz says, and understand that while I'm sympathetic to medical emergencies, there are still laws being broken here. A stolen car, for one. Borrowed, Sophie corrects automatically, then sighs at Diaz's raised eyebrow. It's complicated. I've got all night. Sophie takes a deep breath and begins her story. The arranged marriage, the discovery of her father's misappropriation of her mother's music, the evidence stored on her pendant, the threats from Chen, her escape and eventual meeting with Michael and Emily. She edits some details but provides enough truth to make her situation clear. So this pendant, Diaz says when Sophie finishes, contains recordings of Collins and Chen discussing illegal activities? Sophie nods. Among other things, enough to damage them both significantly if released. And you're using this as leverage to secure your freedom. Yes, Diaz considers this. That's blackmail, technically. Self-defense, Sophie counters. I'm not asking for money or favors. I'm asking to be left alone. And the child got caught in the middle, Diaz observes, her tone hardening slightly. That was never my intention, Sophie says quietly. I care about Emily and Michael. I would leave right now if I thought it would keep them safe, but it's too late for that. My father knows about them now. Caroline speaks up from her position by the window. She's right, I made sure of that. The bitterness in her voice is directed at herself. I thought I was protecting Emily, but I only put her in more danger. Diaz studies Caroline. And you are. Caroline Wright, Emily's aunt, Lisa's sister. She meets Diaz's gaze directly. I'm the one who told Collins where to find Sophie. I thought... She stops, shaking her head. It doesn't matter what I thought, I was wrong. Michael appears in the bedroom doorway. Emily's sleeping peacefully now, he reports. Her color's better. Good, Diaz says. She stands. Decision made. Here's what happens next. I'm not arresting anyone tonight. The child needs stability. But tomorrow, Mr. Hayes, you will return that borrowed car with a note of apology and enough cash to cover any inconvenience. Michael nods. Of course. Ms. Collins. Winters, Sophie corrects. I go by my mother's name now. Ms. Winters, I need to see this evidence. If it contains what you say it does, it could be valuable to several ongoing investigations. Sophie hesitates, looking to Michael, who nods slightly. She reaches into her pocket and produces the pendant, handing it to Diaz. Everything's password protected. I'll write down the access codes. Diaz accepts the pendant carefully. I'll review this privately. If your claims check out, we may be able to offer you some protection. But understand, Raymond Collins is a powerful man with connections throughout the state, and Chen operates internationally beyond our jurisdiction in many ways. We understand, Michael says, moving to stand beside Sophie. Stay here tonight, Diaz continues. Don't go anywhere. Don't contact anyone. I'll return tomorrow morning. She looks at each of them in turn. And no more car theft, no matter how justified it might seem. After Diaz leaves, the cabin falls into an exhausted silence. Caroline makes coffee while Michael checks on Emily again. Sophie sits at the table, staring at her hands, the reality of their situation settling over her like a heavy blanket. I've put you all in danger, she says when Michael returns. We're all responsible for our own choices, he replies, sitting beside her. I chose to help you. Caroline chose to call your father, then chose to help us. We all made our decisions. Well, Caroline brings 3 mugs of coffee to the table, sitting across from them. I need to apologize, she says without preamble. What I did was unforgivable. You were trying to protect Emily, Michael says, his voice weary but without anger, by betraying your trust. Caroline looks at Sophie. And yours, though I barely know you. I was so sure I knew what was best, so convinced that my way of protecting Emily was the only way. She shakes her head. Lisa would be ashamed of me. No, Sophie says surprisingly firmly. She wouldn't. You made a mistake trying to protect someone you love. There's no shame in that. Carolyn's eyes fill with tears. When Emily called me from Mrs. Rivera's, she was so scared, so certain that bad men were going to take you away and make Michael sad again. She said, Aunt Carr, you promised Mommy you'd help us if we were sad. Carolyn wipes her eyes. I suddenly saw everything differently. What I'd done. What was at stake. Michael reaches across the table, taking his sister-in-law's hand. You showed up when it mattered most. That's what counts. The 3 adults sit in silence for a moment, the weight of the day's events pressing down on them. What happens now? Carolyn finally asks. We wait for Diaz, Michael says. See if she's legitimate, if she can actually help. And if she can't? Sophie asks quietly. Michael's expression hardens with determination. Then we figure it out ourselves. One way or another, this ends. In the bedroom, Emily stirs slightly in her sleep, murmuring something indistinct. Michael goes to check on her, leaving Sophie and Caroline alone. He loves you, you know, Caroline says after a moment. I saw it the first day when you were at the swings with Emily, the way he looked at you both. Sophie's breath catches. It's only been a few weeks. Some things don't need time. Caroline studies her coffee. Lisa knew Michael was the one on their first date. Called me that night and said, I met the man I'm going to marry. A sad smile touches her lips. I thought she was crazy, but she was right. I'm not trying to replace her, Sophie says softly. I know that now. Carolyn meets her gaze directly. And I know something else too. Lisa would approve of you, not because you're perfect, but because you make them both happy. That's all she ever wanted. Before Sophie can respond, Michael returns. She's asking for you, he tells Sophie. Just woke up and wants to know if you're okay. Sophie rises immediately, moving toward the bedroom. At the door, she pauses, looking back at Michael and Caroline. 2 people connected by love and loss, trying to navigate an impossible situation. We're going to get through this, she says with quiet conviction. All of us, together. Emily is propped up on pillows when Sophie enters, her small face tired but alert. Miss Sophie, she says, reaching out a hand. Are the bad men gone? Sophie sits on the edge of the bed, taking Emily's hand. For now, how are you feeling, superstar? Better, the medicine helped. Emily studies Sophie's face. Are you scared? The question, so direct and perceptive, momentarily takes Sophie aback. A little, she admits, but not as much as before. Emily nods, accepting this. When I get scared about my heart, Daddy says it's okay to be scared sometimes. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right anyway. Sophie's throat tightens with emotion. Your dad is very wise. He says I get my smart brain from my mom, Emily continues, but I think I get some of it from him too. She hesitates, then asks the question that's clearly been on her mind. Is that man really your dad? The one with the silver hair? Yes, Sophie says softly, that's my father. He didn't look very nice. Sophie chooses her words carefully. He's complicated. He thinks he knows what's best for me, even when I disagree. Emily considers this. Like how Aunt Carr thought she knew what was best for us, but then she changed her mind and helped. Something like that, Sophie agrees, wondering at the child's capacity to distill complex adult conflicts into understandable terms. Maybe your dad will change his mind too, Emily suggests hopefully. Sophie smooths Emily's curls away from her forehead. Maybe, we'll see. And the other man? The scary one? Sophie can't quite keep the chill from her voice. That's Mr. Chen. He's not a good person. Emily's eyes widen slightly. Is he the one who wants to marry you? The one you ran away from? Yes. Emily's face scrunches in confusion. But you don't love him. Why would you marry someone you don't love? Sometimes adults make complicated decisions for reasons that aren't about love, Sophie tries to explain. Emily shakes her head firmly. That's silly. You should only marry someone who makes your heart happy, like how Daddy and Mommy loved each other. She pauses, then adds with the devastating directness of childhood. Or like how you and Daddy look at each other when you think no one sees. Sophie's cheeks warm. Emily, it's okay, Emily says seriously. I think it's nice. Daddy was sad for a really long time after Mommy went to heaven. But he smiles more now, and you play beautiful music together. Before Sophie can formulate a response to this astonishing observation, Emily yawns widely. You should rest, Sophie says, grateful for the diversion. Your body needs sleep to heal. Will you stay? Emily asks, her eyelids already growing heavy. Just until I fall asleep? Of course. As Emily drifts off, her small hand still clasped in Sophie's, the weight of responsibility settles more firmly on Sophie's shoulders. This child has already lost one mother. She deserves stability, safety, happiness. And Michael, kind, steady Michael, who opened his home and his heart without hesitation, deserves peace. Sophie makes a silent vow as she watches Emily sleep. Whatever happens next, she will protect them. Not by running away, not by sacrificing herself, but by finding a solution that allows them all to be safe, together. Outside the bedroom, Michael and Caroline have fallen into quiet conversation. Sophie catches fragments, concerns about Emily's health, questions about the detective's reliability, plans for tomorrow. The normalcy of it, the simple human connection in the midst of crisis, strikes her deeply. For the first time since she fled her father's house, Sophie feels something unexpected taking root within her. Not just determination or fear or longing, but hope. Fragile, tentative hope that there might be a way forward that doesn't require endless running or devastating sacrifice. Dawn is breaking when Detective Diaz returns, her expression grave as she enters the cabin without knocking. Michael and Sophie, who have been keeping watch in shifts while Caroline sleeps, look up from their coffee at the kitchen table. I reviewed the evidence, Diaz says without preamble. It's substantial, more than enough to open formal investigations into both Collins and Chen. Sophie releases a breath she didn't realize she was holding. You believe me? The recordings speak for themselves. Diaz sits, accepting the coffee Michael offers. But there's a complication. My captain received a call this morning from the commissioner. Apparently there are concerns about my investigation into a family matter involving Raymond Collins. Michael's expression darkens. He's already trying to shut it down. He has influence, Diaz acknowledges, but not complete control. I've already forwarded copies of the key files to trusted colleagues at the state and federal level. If anything happens to this investigation, the evidence doesn't disappear. What about Chen? Sophie asks. He's the more immediate threat. Diaz's face grows grimmer. Chen left the country on a private jet 3 hours ago. Destination unknown, but likely somewhere without an extradition treaty. That's good, right? Michael asks cautiously. If he's gone, men like Chen don't simply disappear, Diaz interrupts. They regroup, and they hold grudges. The implication hangs heavy in the air. Chen may be temporarily gone, but the threat remains. So we're back where we started, Sophie says, frustration edging her voice. Not quite. Diaz pulls out her phone, showing them a news article. Headline: Music mogul Raymond Collins announces major retrospective album featuring works of late wife Elizabeth Collins. Sophie stares at the screen in disbelief. What? Released at 5 a.m. today, Diaz says. There's more. He's establishing a music education foundation in her name, with full acknowledgement of her contributions to works previously credited to other artists. He's meeting my terms, Sophie whispers, stunned. But why? He could fight this, bury the evidence, use his influence to... Read the last paragraph, Diaz suggests. Sophie scrolls down. This long overdue recognition is inspired by my daughter Sophie's passionate advocacy for her mother's legacy. She reads aloud. Elizabeth's innovative compositions deserve to be celebrated under her own name. My previous decisions, while intended to protect her work in an industry often hostile to women composers, were misguided. I am grateful to Sophie for helping me see this truth. Sophie looks up, confusion written across her face. Is this sincere or just damage control? Probably both, Diaz says pragmatically. He's getting ahead of potential scandals while also extending an olive branch to you. The question is, what will you do with it? Before Sophie can answer, Emily's voice comes from the bedroom doorway. Sophie? Daddy? Is everything okay? Michael goes to his daughter, kneeling to her level. Everything's fine, Em. How are you feeling this morning? Better. Emily looks past him to Diaz. Are you the police lady from last night? The one who helped us? Diaz's stern expression softens slightly. Detective Diaz, yes. Emily approaches the table, still in her pajamas, her curls mussed from sleep. Thank you for helping. The bad men were scary. Just doing my job, Diaz replies, but her tone is gentler than before. Caroline emerges from the second bedroom, quickly assessing the situation. What's happening? As Michael brings her up to speed, Sophie remains focused on the news article, reading and rereading her father's statement. Is it possible? Could Raymond Collins, master manipulator and control freak, actually be acknowledging his mistakes? I need to speak with him, she decides finally, face to face, not on some deserted road with armed men, but somewhere neutral, somewhere public. Are you sure that's wise? Carolyn asks. No, Sophie admits, but it's necessary. She gestures to the phone. It could be genuine, or it could be another trap. I need to see him, read his face, hear his voice, then I'll know. Diaz considers this. I can arrange a meeting, secure location, police presence with Giaos. No, Sophie says, he'd never agree to that. It needs to be on neutral ground. She thinks for a moment. The Memorial Garden at City Park, tomorrow at noon. Public enough to be safe, private enough to talk, Michael observes, but I'm coming with you. We all are, Carolyn adds firmly. Emily tugs at Sophie's hand. Me too. I want to meet your dad, the real him, not the scary nighttime him. Sophie looks down at this brave child who has already been through so much because of her. We'll see, superstar. First, we need to make sure you're fully recovered. As plans form around her, Sophie feels the weight of the pendant's absence. For months, it has been her security, her leverage, her link to her mother. Now it's in official hands. The truth it contains no longer just hers to control. It's terrifying, and yet, somehow, also freeing. Outside, the morning sun breaks through the trees, casting dappled light across the cabin floor. A new day, perhaps finally the beginning of a resolution rather than another chapter in their flight. Sophie joins Michael at the window, watching Emily and Caroline collect pine cones in the clearing outside the cabin. Detective Diaz makes calls from her car, creating a protective barrier between them and whatever comes next. Do you think he means it? Sophie asks quietly. About my mother's music? About letting me go? Michael considers before answering. I think people can surprise you, even Raymond Collins. Sophie leans slightly against his shoulder, drawing strength from his solid presence. Thank you for everything, for showing up that night in the rain. Michael's hand finds hers, fingers intertwining. Best wrong turn I ever made. The simple truth in his words warms her from within. Whatever tomorrow brings, whatever her father's true intentions, This connection, this unexpected family they formed, is real and worth fighting for. Part 4. City Park's Memorial Garden blooms with late summer flowers, their vibrant colors standing in stark contrast to the tension radiating from the small group waiting by the central fountain. Sophie sits on a stone bench, outwardly composed but inwardly churning with anxiety. Michael stands protectively beside her, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. Caroline walks a few paces away with Emily, pointing out butterflies to distract the child while still keeping her close. Detective Diaz sits on a nearby bench in plain clothes, pretending to read a book. Two other officers, also in civilian attire, are strategically positioned at garden entrances. It's as secure as they can make a public meeting. He's late, Michael observes, checking his watch. He's making an entrance, Sophie replies, familiar with her father's tactics. He always arrives exactly 7 minutes after the agreed time. Not so late as to be rude, but just late enough to establish dominance. As if on cue, Raymond Collins appears at the garden's main entrance, alone and impeccably dressed in a light gray suit that manages to look both casual and perfectly tailored. No bodyguards, no chen, no visible entourage, though Sophie suspects security personnel are nearby. Raymond walks unhurriedly down the garden path, acknowledging curious looks from other visitors with practiced nods. Several people clearly recognize the famous producer, whispers following in his wake. Sophie stands as her father approaches, Michael's hand resting lightly on her lower back in silent support. "Sophie," Raymond says, his voice carefully modulated to sound warm without revealing too much emotion. His gaze flicks to Michael, then to Caroline and Emily in the distance. "Mr. Hayes?" "Father," Sophie acknowledges, "thank you for coming. How could I refuse such a public invitation?" Raymond gestures to the bench. "Shall we sit?" They arrange themselves on the bench, Sophie between her father and Michael, a physical representation of her position between two worlds. "I read your press release," Sophie begins, "about Mom's music." "And," Raymond prompts when she doesn't continue, "I'm trying to decide if it's sincere or just damage control." Raymond's smile is thin, but not entirely without humor. "Can it be both?" He adjusts his cufflinks, a nervous habit Sophie recognizes from childhood. The retrospective album is already in production. Elizabeth will receive full credit for all her compositions. It's overdue. "Why now?" Sophie asks. "You've spent years burying her work, putting other names on it. What changed?" Raymond's gaze shifts to Emily, who is crouched down examining a flower with Caroline. "Perspective, perhaps." He returns his attention to Sophie. "You forced my hand, certainly, but in doing so you made me reconsider certain decisions." "Like arranging my marriage to a criminal?" Raymond winces slightly. "Victor Chen's business dealings are complex. More complex than even I realize, it seems." "That's not an answer." "What would you have me say, Sophie? That I made a mistake?" "Very well. I made a mistake." The admission clearly costs him, each word pulled reluctantly from some deep, prideful place. "I believe the alliance would secure your future, expand our business internationally, create opportunities for you," Sophie interrupts. "Not for me. For the Collins legacy," Raymond corrects, "which includes you." Michael, who has remained silent until now, speaks up. "A legacy built on theft and control isn't worth preserving." Raymond regards him with cool assessment. "And what would you know about legacy, Mr. Hayes? About building something that outlasts you?" "I know about what matters," Michael replies evenly. "Family, trust, choice." Before Raymond can respond, Emily breaks away from Caroline and runs toward them, her natural exuberance impossible to contain despite the tense circumstances. "Daddy, I found a ladybug with no spots," she announces, skidding to a stop before the bench. Her eyes widen as she takes in Raymond up close. "Are you Sophie's dad? The music man?" Raymond seems momentarily disarmed by the direct address. "I am, Raymond Collins." Emily studies him with frank curiosity. "You look nicer in the daytime, not so scary." She extends her small hand with surprising formality. "I'm Emily Hayes. I'm 6 3/4." Raymond hesitates, then accepts the handshake. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Hayes." "Do you make music like Sophie?" Emily asks, undeterred by the adult's obvious discomfort. "I produce music," Raymond explains. Help artists share their work with the world. Emily nods seriously. Sophie's teaching me piano. She says I have a good ear, like my grandmother. She looks at Sophie. Your mom, right? The one whose music was hidden? Sophie feels her father stiffen beside her. Yes, that's right. Why did you hide it? Emily asked Raymond directly, with the devastating straightforwardness of childhood. If it was beautiful music, why wouldn't you want everyone to know she made it? The question hangs in the air between them, stripped of adult complexities and political maneuvering. Just a simple query that cuts to the heart of everything. For perhaps the first time in Sophie's memory, Raymond Collins appears genuinely at a loss for words. It's complicated, Emily, he finally says. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain, Emily observes critically. A startled laugh escapes Sophie, quickly suppressed. Michael gently lays a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Em, why don't you go back to Aunt Caroline for a few minutes while we finish talking? Emily looks disappointed but nods. Okay, but I want to hear the music sometime. The grandmother music. You will, Raymond says unexpectedly. I promise. As Emily returns to Caroline, Raymond watches her go, something unreadable crossing his face. Remarkable child, very direct. Like her mother, Michael says quietly. Raymond turns back to Sophie. To answer the question more fully than I could to a child, I hid Elizabeth's music because Maxwell Reed would have destroyed it. The critic? Sophie frowns. That's not a new excuse, Father. You've always claimed you were protecting Mom's legacy. It wasn't just professional criticism at stake, Raymond says, his voice dropping. Reed had a vendetta against Elizabeth personally. They were involved briefly before she met me. When she ended it, he became obsessive, threatened to ruin her if she tried to publish under her own name. Sophie stares at her father, trying to process this new information. Mom never mentioned this. She didn't want you to know. She was protecting you, just as I thought I was protecting her work. Raymond sighs, suddenly looking older, the confidence draining from his posture. Reed had tremendous influence, still does. He could have buried her compositions, ensured they were never heard. So you buried her instead, Sophie says, but with less heat than before. Erased her name. I preserved the music, Raymond insists. Made sure it reached audiences. It was the compromise we agreed upon after her first solo album was savaged by critics following Reed's lead. Michael leans forward slightly. And Elizabeth was okay with this arrangement? Raymond hesitates. She accepted it as a temporary measure until Reed's influence waned or public tastes changed. Then she got sick, and he trails off, genuine grief briefly visible on his face. Decisions had to be made quickly. The music was all that would remain of her. I couldn't risk losing it to Reed's spite. Sophie absorbs this, weighing it against her memories, against the recordings in her possession, against years of resentment. Why didn't you tell me this before? All these years, I thought you were just profiting from her work. Would you have believed me? Raymond asked simply. Would the headstrong teenager who fought every boundary I set have accepted such an explanation? The honest answer is no, and they both know it. And Chen? Sophie asks, changing course. How does he fit into all this? Raymond's expression hardens. Victor Chen approached me 2 years ago with a business proposition. International distribution, new markets, connections in places difficult to penetrate otherwise. It seemed advantageous. Until you discovered what his business really involves, Michael suggests. I'm not naive, Mr. Hayes. I knew Chen operated in gray areas. But yes, certain aspects of his operations were concealed from me. Raymond looks directly at Sophie. The engagement was a condition of the partnership, a way to cement our business relationship, as he put it. And you agreed, Sophie says flatly, without consulting me. I intended to discuss it with you at an appropriate time. Present it as a beneficial arrangement. A beneficial arrangement, Sophie repeats incredulously. With a man involved in human trafficking? Drug smuggling? I didn't know the extent of his activities, Raymond says sharply. When I began to suspect, I tried to extract us from the agreement. That's when Chen made it clear that backing out would have consequences. He threatened you, Michael surmises. He made observations about how unfortunate it would be if certain revelations about the provenance of hit songs came to light. How tragic if Elizabeth's memory were tarnished by scandals. Raymond's jaw tightens. It wasn't just about business anymore. He was threatening everything: the company, Elizabeth's legacy, your future. Sophie tries to reconcile this version of events with her understanding of her father. So you decided to sacrifice me instead. I was buying time, Raymond counters, looking for leverage, for a way out that wouldn't destroy everything we've built. And now, Michael asks, Chen's left the country, but men like him don't simply disappear. Raymond's expression turns calculating. Chen's departure wasn't entirely his choice. Certain regulatory agencies have suddenly taken an interest in his shipping operations. Banking restrictions have been implemented, assets frozen. You're doing? Sophie asks, surprised. Let's say I have connections of my own. Raymond straightens his already immaculate jacket. Victor Chen made a critical error when he threatened my daughter directly. I don't forgive such mistakes. The fierce protectiveness in his voice startles Sophie. It's at odds with the controlling, manipulative father she's known, or thought she knew. What happens now? She asks after a moment. That depends on you. Raymond meets her gaze directly. The retrospective album releases next month. The Elizabeth Collins Foundation for Music Education launches simultaneously. I'd like you to be involved, to oversee the foundation, if you're willing. Sophie blinks, caught off guard by the offer. You'd give me control of the foundation? Who better? You have her talent, her passion for teaching. Raymond glances toward Emily, who is showing Caroline how to make a daisy chain. You've clearly not lost your touch with students. The offer is tempting, exactly the kind of work Sophie has always wanted to do. Teaching, nurturing young talent, making music accessible to children who would otherwise never touch a piano. And the evidence? She asks. Detective Diaz has it now. So I understand. Raymond's mouth tightens briefly. I've instructed our attorneys not to impede any investigation. What happens? Happens. Just like that? Michael sounds skeptical. After years of hiding the truth was always going to emerge eventually, Mr. Hayes. Sophie ensured that. Raymond regards his daughter with something like reluctant respect. I'm simply choosing to control the narrative rather than be controlled by it. Ever the producer, Sophie thinks, managing how the story unfolds even when he can't change the ending. I need time to think, she says finally, about the foundation, about everything. Of course, Raymond stands, smoothing invisible wrinkles from his suit. Take whatever time you need, the offer remains open. He hesitates, then adds, regardless of your decision about the foundation, the other terms of our agreement stand. Your engagement to Chen is officially terminated. Your mother's work will be properly credited, and you are free to live as you choose. The words Sophie has fought to hear for months now ring hollow, tainted by revelations and half-truths, by the knowledge that her father's capitulation comes more from self-preservation than genuine change of heart. And yet, the outcome is what matters. Her freedom, her mother's recognition, safety for herself and for Michael and Emily. Thank you, she says, the words inadequate but necessary. Raymond nods once, then looks to Michael. Mr. Hayes, take care of my daughter. It's phrased as a command but delivered with something closer to a request. I think Sophie takes care of herself pretty well, Michael replies, but we look out for each other. A faint smile touches Raymond's lips. Indeed. He turns back to Sophie. Call me when you have decided about the foundation. With that, he walks away, his posture perfect, his stride confident, every inch the music mogul who has shaped careers and controlled narratives for decades. But Sophie sees something different now. A man playing a role so long he's forgotten where the performance ends and the real person begins. Caroline approaches with Emily as Raymond disappears from view. Everything okay? I think so, Sophie says, though uncertainty colors her voice. He's meeting our terms. And he offered me a position running a new music education foundation in my mother's name. That's good, right? Carolyn sounds cautiously optimistic. I'm not sure yet. Sophie looks to Michael. What do you think? I think it's your decision, he says carefully. But whatever you choose, we support you. The we encompasses both him and Emily, a unit, a family, one that has somehow expanded to include Sophie in its protective circle. Detective Diaz joins them, tucking her book into her bag. Collins is gone. My officers will maintain surveillance for another hour to ensure he doesn't return. After that, you should be clear. What about the evidence? Sophie asks. What happens next with that? The wheels of justice turn slowly, Diaz says with a wry smile, especially when powerful people are involved. But they do turn. It's all known. The recordings are with our financial crimes unit now. They'll build a case, primarily focused on Chen, but Collins won't escape scrutiny. And us, Michael asks. Sophie specifically. Keep living your lives, Diaz advises. Stay alert but not paranoid. Collins seems sincere about backing off, and Chen has bigger problems right now than a broken engagement. She hands Sophie a business card. Call me if anything changes or if you feel threatened, day or night. After Diaz leaves, the four of them remain in the garden, uncertain what to do next. The moment feels anticlimactic. Months of running and hiding, of fear and planning, culminating in a civil conversation on a park bench. Ice cream, Emily suggests, breaking the tension. Daddy always says ice cream helps when you have big feelings. Michael laughs, the sound warm and genuine. Ice cream, what it is. As they walk through the park, Emily skipping ahead with Caroline, Sophie finds herself scanning faces, checking shadows. Habits formed during weeks on the run that won't disappear overnight. It'll get easier, Michael says quietly, reading her thoughts. The looking over your shoulder, the constant vigilance. Eventually you'll just live again. You sound like you know from experience. He nods. After Lisa died, I was hyper-vigilant with Emily for months. Checked her breathing while she slept, panicked if she was out of my sight for a minute. It was exhausting. What changed? Time, and realizing that fear was stealing the joy from both our lives. He glances ahead at his daughter, who is demonstrating a cartwheel for an amused Caroline. We still have to be careful with her health, but we can't stop living because we're afraid of what might happen. The wisdom in his words resonates deeply. Sophie has been running for so long, fear has become her default state. The possibility of existing without that constant companion is both liberating and terrifying. So we just move forward, she asks? Pretend none of this happened? Not pretend, Michael corrects gently. Remember, learn, but not let it define everything that comes next. He takes her hand, his fingers warm against hers. One day at a time. Remember? Sophie squeezes his hand, drawing strength from the simple connection. One day at a time. That evening, they return to Michael's duplex for the first time in days. The space feels different somehow, markers of a life they had outgrown during their forest sojourn. It feels strange, Emily had observed, spinning in the middle of the living room like someone else's house. Sophie understands the feeling. They have all been transformed by recent events, emerging as slightly different versions of themselves. The physical space remains the same, but they experience it differently. Carolyn stays for dinner, helping Michael prepare spaghetti while Sophie and Emily set the table. The domesticity of it feels both foreign and achingly familiar to Sophie, who has spent most of her life in houses staffed by professionals where meals appeared at appointed times without visible effort. I could get used to this, she murmurs, more to herself than anyone else. Emily, arranging forks with careful precision, looks up. To what? This, Sophie gestures vaguely. Family dinner. Normal life. You don't have family dinner at your house? Emily asks, surprised. Not like this. Sophie adjusts a napkin. My father and I usually ate separately. He was busy with work most evenings. Emily considers this with a slight frown. That's sad. Dinner is when you talk about your day and make plans and stuff. You're right, Sophie agrees. It is sad. I didn't really know that until now. From the kitchen, Michael calls, 5 minutes to spaghetti countdown. Emily giggles. That means the sauce is bubbling too much and he's panicking. I am not panicking, Michael protests, appearing in the doorway with a wooden spoon. I am making a controlled tactical adjustment to the heat level. Carolyn follows, carrying a salad bowl. He's absolutely panicking. The sauce exploded on the stovetop. Their laughter fills the small dining area. the tension of the past days temporarily lifted by simple, shared amusement. Sophie watches them, Michael with a smudge of tomato sauce on his cheek, Caroline elegant even in casual clothes, Emily bouncing with excitement over spaghetti, and feels a sense of belonging she's rarely experienced. Later, after Emily is in bed and Caroline is gone, Sophie and Michael sit on the back porch, mugs of tea warming their hands against the cooling night air. "What will you do about your father's offer?" Michael asks, breaking the comfortable silence. Sophie sighs, having wrestled with the question all evening. "I don't know. Part of me wants to reject it outright, to have nothing to do with him or his companies. But, but the foundation could do real good. Music education programs are being cut from schools everywhere. Private lessons are expensive. Kids with talent, but without means, never get the chance to develop it." She sips her tea. "If I ran the foundation, I could change that. Create scholarship programs, fund public school initiatives, make music accessible to children who'd otherwise never touch a piano." "Like Emily," Michael observes. "Like Emily," Sophie agrees, "and others with even fewer resources." "Then I think you have your answer." Sophie turns to study his profile in the dim porch light. "You think I should take it?" "I think you should do what feels right to you, not what's calculated to punish or please your father." Michael meets her gaze. "The question isn't about Raymond Collins. It's about Sophie Winters and what she wants her life to be." And the distinction strikes Sophie forcefully. For so long, her choices have been reactions to her father, rebelling against his control, exposing his secrets, escaping his plans for her future. Even refusing his offer would be another reaction, another decision defined by their relationship rather than her own desires. "I want to teach," she says slowly, the truth emerging as she speaks it. "I want to create opportunities for kids to discover music without pressure or expectations. I want to honor my mother's legacy, not by hiding it or exposing it, but by continuing it, sharing her passion for composition, for innovation." "Then take the position," Michael says simply. "Make the foundation your own. Set boundaries with your father. Create something meaningful." Sophie leans against his shoulder, the weight of decision lifting slightly. "When did you get so wise?" "Comes with the maintenance uniform," he jokes. "Secret wisdom compartment in the left pocket." Their laughter mingles in the night air, a moment of lightness in a journey filled with shadows. Inside the house, the phone rings. Michael tenses. No one calls this late with good news, and goes to answer it. Sophie follows, an uneasy feeling settling in her stomach. Michael's expression grows increasingly concerned as he listens to the caller. "How bad?" he asks. "Yes, I understand. We'll be right there." He hangs up, already reaching for his keys. "It's Emily. Mrs. Rivera called from the hospital. Emily woke up with chest pains and trouble breathing. They've admitted her." The world seems to tilt beneath Sophie's feet. "Hospital? But she was fine at dinner. Her condition can change quickly," Michael says, his voice tight with controlled fear. "We need to go. Now." The hospital corridors are harshly lit, antiseptic and intimidating. Michael moves through them with the familiarity of someone who has walked this path too many times before, leading Sophie to the pediatric cardiac unit where Mrs. Rivera waits, her weathered face lined with worry. "She was sleeping," the older woman explains, twisting her hands together. "Then she called out, said her chest hurt. By the time I got to her room, she was having trouble breathing. I called the ambulance right away." "You did exactly right," Michael assures her, though anxiety radiates from him in almost visible waves. "Where is she now?" "They're running tests. The doctor said to wait here." They sit in uncomfortable chairs beneath fluorescent lights that make everyone look ill. Michael stares at the floor, his hands clasped tightly between his knees. Sophie wants to comfort him, but doesn't know how. What right does she have to offer reassurance about his daughter? What words could possibly help? Instead, she does the only thing she can think of. She takes his hand and holds it, a silent promise of presence. He grips her fingers so tightly it almost hurts, but she doesn't pull away. An hour passes before a doctor appears, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a direct manner. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Dr. Patel. I've been examining Emily." Michael stands, still holding Sophie's hand. How is she? Stable now. We've administered medication to reduce the inflammation around her heart and ease her breathing. The episode was concerning but not immediately life-threatening. What caused it? Sophie asks. She seemed fine earlier. Dr. Patel glances at Sophie, then back to Michael with a questioning look. Sophie is family, Michael says firmly. Please be direct with both of us. The doctor nods. Emily's condition has progressed more rapidly than her previous scans indicated. The valve defect is creating increased pressure. We've been monitoring it, hoping to delay surgery until she's older, but I believe we need to move up the timeline. Michael's grip on Sophie's hand tightens further. Surgery? A relatively straightforward procedure to repair the valve. Good success rates, especially in children Emily's age. Dr. Patel's voice is reassuring but frank. If we don't intervene, these episodes will become more frequent and potentially more severe. When? Michael asks, his voice barely audible. I'd recommend within the next 2 weeks. We need to run additional tests tomorrow, consult with the surgical team, but the sooner we address this, the better Emily's outcome will be. Michael nods mechanically, absorbing the information. Can I see her? Of course, she's asking for you, and Patel checks her notes. For Sophie? She was quite insistent. That's me, Sophie says, surprised and touched that Emily would ask for her at such a time. They follow Dr. Patel down the corridor to a small, private room where Emily lies in a bed that seems too large for her small frame. She's connected to monitors, an oxygen tube beneath her nose, but her eyes brighten when she sees them. Daddy! Sophie! She sounds tired but alert. The doctor said my heart was being naughty, but they gave it medicine to behave. Michael goes immediately to her side, brushing curls from her forehead. Hey, Supergirl, how are you feeling? Better now. It was scary, though. It hurt, and I couldn't breathe good. Emily's gaze shifts to Sophie, who stands uncertainly at the foot of the bed. Sophie, will you tell me a story, like you do when I can't sleep? Sophie moves closer, her throat tight with emotion. Of course, sweetheart. What kind of story would you like? One about a brave girl, and music, and everything turning out okay in the end. I think I know just the one, Sophie says, pulling a chair to the bedside opposite Michael. She begins a story about a young pianist who discovers a magical piano that can heal broken hearts. A tale she improvises, weaving in elements of Emily's own life, her courage, her love of music. Emily drifts off to sleep before the story ends, her breathing steady, the monitors beeping reassuringly. Michael watches his daughter with a mixture of love and fear that makes Sophie's heart ache. She'll be okay, Sophie whispers, though she has no right to make such promises. She's strong, like her father. Michael looks up, his eyes suspiciously bright. Like her mother, he corrects softly. Lisa faced everything, even the end, with such courage. In the dim hospital room with monitors softly beeping and Emily sleeping between them, Michael tells Sophie about Lisa, not just how she died, but how she lived. Her laugh that could fill a room. Her passion for volunteering at the children's hospital, where they'd met when Michael was doing emergency response training. Her determination to finish her nursing degree even as her own health failed. She made me promise 2 things before she died, Michael says, his voice low to avoid waking Emily. To take care of Emily, of course, but also to find happiness again someday, not to close myself off from life. She sounds remarkable, Sophie says, meaning it. She would have liked you, Michael tells her. Your strength, your talent, the way you care about Emily. The simple statement touches Sophie deeply. There is no higher praise, she realizes, than being told the woman Michael loved would have approved of her. Mrs. Rivera appears at the door, offering to stay with Emily so Michael can get coffee. As they walk to the hospital cafeteria, Sophie makes a decision. I'm calling my father, she says. Michael looks at her, surprised. About the foundation? About Emily. He has connections with top medical centers, specialists. If there's a better surgeon, a better facility for her procedure, he would know. Sophie, we can't afford... I'm not asking you to. I'm asking my father to help, as a favor to me. Michael stops walking, studying her face. You do that? Ask him for help, after everything? For Emily, yes. Sophie meets his gaze steadily. You and Emily took me in, protected me, when I had nowhere else to go. Let me do this. After a long moment, Michael nods. Okay. Raymond Collins answers his private line on the second ring, his voice cautious. Sophie, is everything all right? I need your help, Sophie says without preamble, explaining Emily's condition and the recommended surgery. Raymond listens without interrupting, then says simply, I'll make some calls. The Collins Foundation has relationships with several pediatric cardiac centers. Dr. Helena Cho at Mount Sinai is the best in the country for this type of procedure. This isn't about the foundation, Sophie clarifies. This is personal. I'm asking you as my father to help Emily. A pause, then, I understand. Consider it done. Where is Emily now? Sophie provides the hospital information, then adds, I'm accepting the position, by the way, with the foundation. I'm glad, Raymond says, and for once the warmth in his voice seems genuine. We'll discuss details later. For now, focus on the child. I'll have my assistant contact you within the hour with information about Dr. Cho. True to his word, arrangements are made with astonishing speed. By morning, Emily is scheduled for a consultation with Dr. Cho, with surgery to follow if she concurs with the diagnosis. The Collins Foundation will cover all expenses not met by insurance, a gesture Raymond insists is standard for children in the Foundation's music programs, though Emily has been retroactively enrolled. 3 days later, Emily undergoes successful surgery to repair her heart valve. Sophie and Michael maintain a vigil in the waiting room, joined by Caroline and, surprisingly, Mrs. Rivera, who brings homemade empanadas and practical comfort. She'll dance at her wedding, Dr. Cho assures them afterward. The repair was textbook perfect. With proper monitoring and care, there's no reason Emily shouldn't live a completely normal life. The relief is so profound that Michael actually sways on his feet. Sophie steadies him, her own emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Thank you, Michael tells the surgeon, his voice thick. For everything. Thank the Collins Foundation, Cho replies. Their pediatric cardiac program is making procedures like this available to families who otherwise couldn't access this level of care. Later, when Emily is settled in recovery, Michael steps into the hallway to call Mrs. Rivera with an update. Sophie sits beside the sleeping child, gently holding her small hand, marveling at the journey that brought them here. A soft knock at the door draws her attention. Raymond stands in the doorway, hesitant in a way Sophie has rarely seen him. May I come in? He asks quietly. Sophie nods, surprised by his appearance but somehow not alarmed by it. Raymond approaches the bed slowly, studying Emily's peaceful face. The surgery went well? Yes, Dr. Cho says she'll make a full recovery. Good, that's good. Raymond seems uncharacteristically at a loss for words. He reaches into his jacket and produces a small velvet box. I brought something for when she wakes up. Sophie accepts the box curiously. Inside is a delicate gold bracelet sized for a child's wrist, with a single charm, a musical note. It was yours, Raymond explains. Your mother gave it to you on your 7th birthday. I thought, perhaps Emily might like it. The gesture, so unexpected and oddly touching, brings tears to Sophie's eyes. Thank you, she'll love it. Raymond nods, glancing at the door as if eager to leave now that his mission is accomplished. But he lingers, looking down at Emily again. She reminds me of you, he says finally. At that age, the same determination in her eyes. She's braver than I ever was, Sophie replies, and kinder. You were always kind, Sophie, until the world taught you to be cautious. Raymond's voice holds a note of regret Sophie has never heard before. Perhaps that was my fault, too. Before Sophie can respond, Michael returns, stopping short at the sight of Raymond by Emily's bed. Collins, he says, neutral but wary. Mr. Hayes. Raymond straightens, businesslike once more. I was just leaving. I simply wanted to check on Emily's progress and bring a small gift. He moves toward the door, then pauses. The foundation offices will be ready next month. No pressure on timing. Emily's recovery comes first, of course. With that, he's gone, leaving Sophie and Michael in a silence filled with unspoken questions. He brought Emily a bracelet, Sophie explains, showing Michael the velvet box. It was mine when I was her age. Michael examines the delicate gold chain with its musical note charm. That's unexpected. He's full of surprises lately, Sophie agrees. I'm still trying to figure out which ones are genuine. Maybe they all are, in their way, Michael suggests. People are complicated. Even Raymond Collins. Sophie replaces the bracelet in its box, setting it on Emily's bedside table for when she wakes. I've been thinking about what comes next, after Emily recovers, after the foundation launches. And I want to stay, Sophie says simply, here with you and Emily, if that's what you want too. Michael takes her hand, his expression serious. Are you sure? Your whole life has been about running, about escaping control. I don't want to be another match, another expectation. You're the opposite of a cage, Sophie tells him. With you, I feel free to be myself, to make my own choices, to build something, not just run from something. Michael's smile starts slow but grows until it lights his entire face. Then yes, that's exactly what I want too. In the hospital bed, Emily stirs, her eyes fluttering open. Did I miss something good? She asks sleepily. Sophie and Michael exchange glances, then both laugh. Nothing that can't be repeated, Michael assures his daughter. How are you feeling, Supergirl? Hungry, Emily declares, and my chest feels funny, but not hurty anymore. She notices the velvet box. What's that? A gift, Sophie tells her, from my father, for being so brave. Emily's eyes widen as Sophie shows her the bracelet. It's beautiful, like a real princess bracelet. It was mine when I was your age, Sophie explains. Now it's yours. As she fastens the delicate chain around Emily's wrist, Sophie feels a sense of continuity, of passing something forward rather than simply preserving or hiding it. Perhaps that's what legacy truly means. Not control or ownership, but connection. From Elizabeth to Sophie to Emily, a golden thread of music and love spanning generations. 1 month later, the Collins Foundation for Music Education officially launches with a gala event featuring performances by established artists alongside student musicians from the pilot programs Sophie has already established in 3 underserved schools. The highlight of the evening is a special duet, Sophie and Emily playing the composition Elizabeth Collins wrote for her daughter decades earlier, now arranged for 4 hands on a single piano. Emily, fully recovered from her surgery and resplendent in a purple dress, with music notes embroidered on the hem, plays her simplified part with careful concentration, while Sophie provides the complex accompaniment. In the audience, Michael watches with pride evident in every line of his face. Beside him sits Caroline, who has become a regular presence in their lives, her initial disapproval of Sophie evolving into genuine friendship. And there, 2 rows ahead, sits Raymond Collins, his silver hair catching the light as he leans forward slightly, intent on the performance. When the piece concludes, the applause is thunderous. Emily beams, her smile bright enough to light the entire auditorium. Sophie feels tears pricking her eyes, not from sadness or fear, but from a fullness she's rarely experienced. As they take their bows, Sophie catches her father's eye across the crowded room. Raymond inclines his head slightly, a gesture that somehow conveys more than words could, acknowledgement, respect, perhaps even a hint of apology. Sophie returns the nod, accepting what is offered without expecting more. Their relationship remains complex, fraught with history and hurt, but no longer defined solely by control and rebellion. They have found, if not peace, then at least a kind of truce. Later that evening, after Emily has been tucked into bed with stories of her triumphs still dancing in her head, Sophie and Michael sit on their back porch, a familiar ritual now imbued with new meaning. What are you thinking? Michael asks, noticing Sophie's contemplative expression. She gestures to the night sky, where stars are just becoming visible. About journeys, how sometimes you end up exactly where you need to be, even when it's nowhere you plan to go. Michael's hand finds hers, their fingers intertwining with practiced ease. Like a woman running through the rain, finding shelter with a maintenance worker and his daughter? Exactly like that, Sophie agrees with a smile. The best wrong turn I ever made. From inside comes the soft chime of Emily's music box, a gift from Raymond, playing one of Elizabeth's compositions. The melody drifts through the open window, connecting past and present, wrapping around them like an invisible thread. Your mother would be proud, Michael says softly, of the foundation, of how you've honored her work, of the woman you've become. Sophie leans against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his solid presence. I think Lisa would be proud too, of how you've raised Emily, of the home you've created, of the way you show up for people who need you. The simple truth in their words settles around them like a blessing. Whatever challenges lie ahead, Raymond's continuing evolution, the foundation's growth, Emily's development, their own deepening relationship, they will face them together. The rain begins to fall softly, a gentle patter on the roof that bears no resemblance to the angry downpour of that fateful night. Sophie tilts her face up, no longer afraid of storms or what they might bring. After all, sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes a poor single dad takes in a girl for one night, never knowing she was a millionaire's daughter, or that together they would build a family stronger and richer than any fortune could buy.